In our past life, on the day my sister and I chose our beastkin partners, she selected a nimble white tiger, while I was left with only a frail, dying python. Within a year of marrying the python, I bore his offspring. The following year, the python miraculously survived his heavenly tribulation and transformed into a golden dragon, making me the dragon queen who commanded universal reverence. Meanwhile, my sister's white tiger grew weaker by the day after their marriage, collapsing during the clan succession tournament and never recovering his former vigor. In the end, I won the competition, but my sister flew into such a rage that she not only poisoned my wine but also threw my child off the cliff. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back on the day of choosing an Orsish mate. The moment I saw my sister rushing toward the little basilisk, I knew she had been reborn too. But little did she know, being the dragon queen isn't as glorious as it seems. In our family, every woman must choose an orc husband upon coming of age to enhance magical prowess. All candidates are meticulously selected by our servants before presentation. As daughters of Liang's most prominent household, my sister and I had orcs practically breaking down doors for a chance to be chosen. A stabbing pain shot through my head when suddenly, a crystal-clear voice rang out, "Father, Mother, I want this little python," blinking into focus. I saw my sister clutching the feeble serpent, throwing a full-blown tantrum to make the poor creature her husband. "Lila dear, why don't you reconsider? Look how majestic that white tiger is," Mother coaxed my sister. "Indeed, that python looks rather sickly. It suits your younger sister better. Who even allowed this creature into our manor?" Father chimed in, already threatening to punish the servant who brought the snake. I lowered my head with a bitter smile. Even after rebirth, Father and Mother still doted on my sister while treating me like thin air. "Father, Mother, since elder sister favors the python, let her have it. I'd like to choose the white tiger instead." Brand's bright eyes sparkled when he heard I'd chosen him, a delicate blush creeping across his handsome face. Father slapped me across the face. "What wicked thoughts fill your mind? Must you bring ruin upon your sister?" Father fumed, his beard bristling with rage, yet my sister persisted stubbornly, weeping and demanding to form a pact with the serpent god Ba. In the end, our parents couldn't withstand her persistence and permitted her to form a pact with the serpent, while I bonded with Bran. As my sister stepped through the doorway, she cast a glance back at me, her eyes brimming with haughty defiance. "Do be careful, little sister," she tittered behind her handkerchief. "That white tiger of yours might have some congenital defects." I understood her implication all too well. In our past life, the tiger's declining health had made her believe it was inherently flawed. Watching her triumphant expression, I simply smiled faintly without a word. "Sister, your best days are yet to come. Only I truly understand what the boss snake really is. In past lives, people only knew the boss snake successfully transcended tribulations to become a dragon, unaware of the true reason, mistaking it for the creature's innate bloodline power. Not so fast. The spiritual power behind the basilisk's draconic transformation actually originates from me. Our Qi family is the foremost noble house of Dalian. Our ancestors bore the innate sacred furnace constitution. Dual cultivation with such practitioners can double a partner's cultivation prowess. A single drop of heart's blood can awaken latent bloodline potential, granting profound cultivation breakthroughs. Beyond our prestigious lineage, countless beastkin flock to my sisters and me, coveting contracts with sacred furnace practitioners. In my generation, I became the second divine furnace saint in our lineage. The saint's physique appears ordinary until dual cultivation, revealing its profound mysteries only to cultivation partners. When the Bash demon discovered my saintly constitution in our past life, instead of revering me, he imprisoned me in his dungeon, forcing daily dual cultivation. Slap. Worse still, he sent minions to drain a bowl of my heart's blood every week. His torment left me wasting away, reduced to playing the dutiful wife in public, a mere prop for his ascension to the dragon throne. Even when I carried the basilisk's child, he showed no mercy, forcing dual cultivation against my will. On my delivery day, he took a bowl of my heart's blood. I barely glimpsed our newborn before the basilisk snatched it away, plunging me back into perpetual darkness. By the succession ceremony, I was already at death's door. My sister's poison merely hastened the inevitable. Since my sister wants to experience my past life so badly, let her enjoy it to the fullest. I brought Bren back to my courtyard. As the least favored daughter in the family, I naturally got the most remote quarters. The only reason I could choose Bren was thanks to my status as the legitimate heir, with the contract enforcer watching. I couldn't afford to embarrass the main family line, though the courtyard is secluded. I find peace in its quietude. From now on, you're mine, I said, patting Bren on the back. As Bren approached, the unmistakable scent of youth enveloped me. Bren radiated warmth, filling me with an inexplicable sense of security, yet I still pushed him away. Visions of my past life imprisoned by the bash serpent remained vivid. I couldn't risk revealing my sacred furnace constitution so soon. Pressing a finger lightly against Bran's chest, I murmured, though we've formed a pact, Bran, I'd prefer to know you better before dual cultivation. A pair of warm hands enveloped my icy fingertips, flooding my body with relentless warmth. Bran's bright eyes stared intently at me before giving a firm nod. Good. I don't like disobedient children. Go play by yourself for now. With that, I turned and retreated to my room, though I've escaped that venomous serpent's influence in this life. I still haven't uncovered why Bran's health deteriorated so drastically in our past incarnation. The Tiger clan is naturally robust. Even enduring our sister's relentless beatings and forced training shouldn't have reduced him to such frailty. 2. Outside the window, Bren was joyfully chasing butterflies in the garden. I swore to myself that in this lifetime, I would save Bren no matter what. My husband Mara is undoubtedly the strongest. Ever since that day I made my resolution, I've rarely stayed in my own courtyard. I practically buried myself in the endless sea of ancient tomes in the archives. Desperately searching for the reason behind Bran's weakness all those years ago, persistence pays off. After a full month, I finally uncovered the truth. Ancient texts record, an unawakened white tiger resembles ordinary tigers, but awakening requires boundless spiritual energy. Without sufficient nourishment, it shall perish. Bren is likely descended from the legendary white tiger divine beast, not merely an albino tiger. Before his bloodline awakens, he'll require massive spiritual energy. Insufficient supply would lead to fatal exhaustion. As dusk fell, I dragged my weary body back to my courtyard. Normally Bren would have retreated to his room by this hour, but today he sat by the doorway, knees hugged to his chest, glancing around as if waiting for someone. His fluffy ears were out, drooping limply atop his head. Bran, I called out to him. His ears perked up instantly at the sound of my voice, and his gaze snapped toward me. Sis, you're finally back. The boy with beast ears suddenly buried himself in my embrace. Sis, since we made our pact a month ago, you leave early and come back late every day. I barely get to see you. Do you not like me? The boy's fluffy beast ears twitched nervously as he spoke with a slight tremble in his voice. As if afraid of something. How could that be? I chuckled while ruffling Bran's hair. I've just had some matters to attend to these past few days. That's why I've been neglecting you. Then can you spend more time with me from now on, sis? Bren lightly tugged at my sleeve with his fingers, his gaze averted as if afraid to meet my eyes. Of course, I couldn't resist pinching Bran's soft, squishy cheeks. Bren looked utterly content, even reverting to his true form for me to pet. As I stroked the silky tiger fur, my mind wandered to how I'd gather enough spiritual energy before Bran's next transformation. As my thoughts wandered, my hand slipped somewhere unexpected. I felt a tiny bump and absent-mindedly gave it a couple of squeezes. Bren instantly reverted to human form, his face flushing scarlet like a boiled lobster. What's going on? I blinked at Bren in utter confusion. You pervert. Bren dashed back to his room in a flash. 3. I chuckled at the firmly shut door. What's the point of running? You'll still be sharing my bed tonight. Previously when I returned, Bren was already asleep. This would be our first time sharing a bed while both awake. The slender, handsome youth perched tentatively at the bedside, leaving most of the space for me. As I settled onto the bed, I heard my companion's breath hitch abruptly, yet when I turned, their eyes remained firmly shut. Without a word, I wrapped myself in the quilt and slept. I possess the innate sacred furnace constitution. Even mere proximity to me during cultivation brings profound benefits. With no need for dual cultivation, Bran's training progressed miraculously, his physique growing more imposing with each passing month. As I approached him, I could actually feel an intimidating presence. Sis, Bran called out with a bright smile as he turned toward me. Through our time together, I'd come to realize Bran was genuinely kind-hearted. What a pity that in our past life, my sister only knew how to brutally force him to cultivate, ultimately leading to his tragic downfall. Counting the days, Bran's awakening draws ever nearer. Since Bran's been cultivating by my side in this lifetime, his awakening will surely come sooner. I should start making preparations. Bran, how about we go shopping in town together today? Sure, sis. I'll tag along with whatever you want to do. I shook my head with a chuckle. Silly tiger. We're going shopping for you. Lately, I'd made quite a fortune using my past life knowledge, more than enough to buy Bren some rare treasures. The streets were bustling as I pulled Bren into the treasure pavilion. I've just splurged on some spirit pearls and spirit stones at the treasure pavilion. Seeing my lavish spending, the shopkeeper rushed over to personally attend to me. As I was leaving after settling the bill, the shopkeeper suddenly grabbed my arm and whispered in my ear, You clearly have exceptional taste, miss. I've got some special items in the back. Care to take a look? Oh, do tell. To be frank with you, miss, I possess a millennium-old spirit ginseng. Consuming it can replenish vast amounts of spiritual energy. Might this interest you? My interest was genuinely piqued. At this point, I couldn't afford to miss any opportunity to obtain spiritual energy. A jade pendant lay quietly upon crimson silk, with wisps of white mist curling mysteriously above it. Boss, this is indeed fine jade. Before I could finish, a snide voice cut me off. If it's such fine jade, why don't you let your little sister have it? I looked up. It was Lila. Her face was caked with thick makeup, noticeably thinner than before. Though her voice sounded forceful, it clearly lacked real strength. I chuckled inwardly. Seems that Snake Erebus had finally shown his true colors. I wonder what he'll do to me. His sister who wasn't born with the innate spiritual furnace. What's going on here? Another familiar voice rang out. This time, it was Erebus, for my sister visibly flinched at Erebus's voice, confirming my suspicions. Though a flicker of panic crossed my sister's eyes when Erebus arrived, she stood her ground with even greater determination. Our Erebus is about to undergo his heavenly tribulation. Do you know what a bash transforms into after ascension? A dragon. Hand over the jade now. When Erebus becomes a dragon, the entire manor will bask in his glory. My sister's finger was practically jabbing at my nose. Get out of the way. Bren darted in front of me and swatted my sister's hand away. The force sent my sister staggering, nearly knocking her off her feet. Yet even so, Erebus didn't lift a finger to help her. She's been completely discarded now that she's outlived her usefulness. My sister's eyes turned venomous, like a serpent's. I knew that look all too well. It was the same gaze she'd given me in our past life right before poisoning my wine. In past lives, anything of value I possessed was taken by force. Dear sister, what fate awaits you in this lifetime? I rested my hand lightly on Bran's outstretched arm, feeling the powerful muscles beneath the thin fabric. This kid genuinely cares about me and wants to keep me safe. If big sister wants it, who am I to stand in her way? After saying my piece, I bowed and left the treasure pavilion with Bran. Sister, I could take that snake. If you want, I'll get your jade pendant back for you. Bren followed behind me, his eyes burning with murderous intent, as if he'd charge back to reclaim the pendant the moment I nodded. No need. Why should we stoop to her level? Sis, I can totally do this. I ruffled the grumpy tiger's fur and whispered mysteriously, don't worry, I've got it all planned out. Besides, we finally got this date together, let's not waste it on them. Hearing my reply, Bren immediately perked up and started bouncing along beside me as we shopped. As we strolled through the stores, my mind kept circling back to today's events. Ordinary bash snakes never transform into dragons, nor do they require vast spiritual energy. Now even Erebus needs copious spiritual energy, to the point of requiring Lila's assistance, but it matters not. Without me in this lifetime, he'll never ascend to dragonhood regardless. His frantic absorption of spiritual energy now is nothing but forced growth, and the backlash will inevitably consume him. What's wrong? I figured Bran's awakening was still some time away, so gathering spiritual energy wasn't urgent, but I'd underestimated myself. That very night, Bran developed a raging fever. Even the most renowned orc physician in the city couldn't diagnose it, merely calling the illness peculiar. Lila came to my yard just to mock me. Little sister, I told you he was sick and would die sooner or later. Who asked you not to listen? Big sister, just wait and see whose game this will be in the end. Seeing she couldn't out-argue me, Lila spat in my yard and left. I stepped inside to check on Bran. Bran's body burned like a branding iron, beads of sweat rolling down his wheat-colored skin along the sharp contours of his face. His eyes, usually bright as stars, were now bloodshot. Beneath his aquiline nose, his breathing came in ragged, scorching gasps that seemed ready to ignite the very air. Sis, am I being a bother? I'll get better soon, I promise. With Orc's superior hearing, I knew he caught every word Lila said. I placed the cool, damp cloth on his forehead and grasped his burning hands. Don't talk like that. Of course you'll recover. I meant to wipe him down, but when lifting the hem of his shirt, I discovered eerie markings had inexplicably appeared across Bran's taut abdomen. The demonic patterns spread like ink-black spider silk, writhing with unnatural life as they traced the contours of his abdominal muscles. In that instant, I realized I'd vastly underestimated myself. The awakening I thought was still days away had come upon us this very day. The ancient texts came back to my mind. During their awakening phase, white tigers not only require vast spiritual energy but also experience intense primal urges. Instead of staying put on the bed, Bren sat up and began nuzzling his furry head against my neck and shoulders. His breathing grew ragged as his restless hands started tracing fiery paths across my body, yet he never crossed that final line. I've seen Bran's loyalty these past days. It's time to give him a little reward. Don't let the child suffocate. I turned and met Bran's burning lips with mine. The next morning Bren woke up fresh as a daisy, leaving me sore and aching in bed. Bren's physique had become noticeably stronger than before, and the thought of future days ahead made my vision darken. While resting in the courtyard, I was suddenly startled by a shrill commotion. "Don't you dare hide behind closed doors, sister. The household servants saw you steal my spirit jade with their own eyes yesterday." Did I steal her spirit jade? It seems even after rebirth, I shouldn't have held any expectations for my dear sister. According to clan law, thieves must transfer all their spiritual energy to the victim and receive 30 lashes. Erebus's voice echoed from the courtyard, clearly here to back up my sister. Watching their coordinated performance, I'd already begun piecing things together. Erebus truly does need spiritual energy, an enormous amount of it, otherwise he wouldn't resort to such clumsy tactics to frame me and covet my cultivation. Just as I raised my head to retort, Bren came rushing out in a whirlwind. "I've been with Mara the whole time. Don't you dare falsely accuse him." 5. Lila shot Bren a disdainful look, rolling her eyes dramatically. "You're her orc, of course you'd defend her. You two are clearly in cahoots. Just wait till you both have to transfer your spiritual energy to me." And Erebus, gently pulling Bren back. I flashed my dear sister a radiant smile and said, "Since you're so confident, sister, why don't we gather everyone in the manor to witness whether I truly stole your jade?" Bran's eyes flickered with surprise before regaining composure. He squeezed my hand tightly, as if offering silent support. Lila's face darkened momentarily before she forced composure. "Fine," she sneered. "Do you think I'm afraid? Even if the whole world sees, it won't change the fact that you stole my jade." The entire household was summoned to the main hall, where my sister continued her vehement accusations about me stealing her spirit jade. I simply stood by with a silent smile. My father slammed his cane on the ground in rage and began berating me without hearing my side. "You ungrateful wretch, you've always envied your sister, stealing her things since childhood, and now you've taken to thievery." With unflinching composure, I calmly replied, "Since my sister keeps accusing me of stealing her jade, I'd like to see the proof." "Evidence, that's easy enough. Just let someone search your room and we'll surely find the stolen goods." "May I ask, dear sister, was what you lost truly a spirit jade containing spiritual energy?" "Of course." "What, is little sister getting scared now? If you confess your crime now, perhaps I could plead with father to spare you those 20 lashes." "Not at all. I'm just concerned that elder sister's memory might be failing with age, and you've mistaken what was lost." "You..." Lila seemed on the verge of an outburst, but restrained herself, directing the matrons and maids to search my courtyard. Soon the head matron emerged holding a jade pendant, presenting it to Lila like a prized trophy. "See, young mistress, this servant found it in your quarters, with the evidence before us. What possible explanation could you have, sister?" Lila adopted a domineering air, looking down her nose at me. "But this isn't the jade sister mentioned," I remarked casually, sipping my tea. Pitiful to say, in my past life when I was imprisoned, the boss snake feared my death would ruin our dual cultivation. He scavenged countless rare treasures just to keep me barely alive. That's why now, a single glance is all I need to discern a jade pendant's authenticity. The shopkeeper did produce a genuinely rare warm jade that day, but claims of it containing spiritual energy, pure exaggeration. That jade is clearly just an ordinary stone devoid of any spiritual energy. The white smoke is nothing more than vaporized mineral powder the merchant placed beneath it. Wretched fiend, the evidence is right before your eyes, yet you still deny it. Guards, drag this abomination away and drain every ounce of her spiritual power for Lila. I'd like to see anyone try." Bren emerged from behind me, positioning himself protectively in front of me. As he spoke, Bren's pupils flashed gold for an instant, radiating an uncanny glow. "Golden irises," the servant gasped in astonishment. "That's the eye color only awakened primordial beasts possess. Could the second lady's beast husband be an awakened ancient divine creature?" As Bren revealed his golden eyes, my dear sister's face instantly darkened. "Happy? Not a chance. In the past life, the boss snake transformed into a golden dragon early, while the white tiger met an untimely demise. Who would have thought that in this life, her switching to the boss snake would trigger my white tiger's premature awakening instead?" Erebus also wore a grim expression, his gaze toward Bren seething with hatred. "So what if your beast husband is an awakened divine beast? You stole what's mine. Both of you deserve to have all your spiritual power drained as compensation." Seeing everyone's attention diverted by Bren, Lila quickly spoke up to redirect the focus back to the precious jade. "You jest, sister. Look closely. What the matron holds is merely common warm jade, nothing like the spiritual jade you described. After lying dormant for so long, all the chi-infused mineral powder on this jade has dissipated. To any observer now, it's just an ordinary piece." I chuckled and said, "Will you let me off the hook now, sister?" Mara's face twisted in disgust like she'd swallowed a fly, her expression flustered. "No. That's impossible, impossible. Wait, I must be mistaken. What I lost was just an ordinary warming jade. I'd anticipated her sudden change of story and chuckled. But I asked you before the search, sister. Back then you swore it was a spirit jade you'd lost. Lila opened her mouth to protest, but one sharp glance from Erebus silenced her completely. One look told me everything. She must have suffered Erebus abuse just like I did in my past life, in my previous incarnation. I possess the sacred cauldron constitution, where regular dual cultivation alone could enhance my cultivation, but Lila's different. Who knows what torment Erebus has in store for her? That serpent never had an ounce of sincerity. If it's just Lila misremembering, then let it slide this time, with everyone watching. Father couldn't openly favor my sister, so the matter was quietly dropped, but I alone knew. Though Lila played the villain this time, Erebus was surely pulling the strings behind the scenes. Having failed to frame me, she'd now face brutal retribution and endless torment upon returning. As we left the hall at dusk, Bren gripped my hand tightly, feeling the warmth of his palm. I whispered, "What's wrong, sis? I feel so worthless." Bren mumbled, his head drooping. "Silly boy." I flicked his forehead, fighting back unexpected tears. In my past life, no one cared for me. My parents always favored my elder sister since childhood. I thought marrying Erebus would bring relief, but instead I faced endless humiliation and torment, where even the lowest servants in the Dragon Palace treated me with utter contempt. But thankfully, in this lifetime I met Bren. "Sister, why are you crying?" Seeing my tears, Bren leaned down anxiously, his calloused fingers from training hovering near my face, wanting to wipe my tears away yet afraid his rough skin might scratch my delicate complexion. "It's nothing. I just feel so lucky to have met you." I wiped away my tears with my sleeve. "Bran, you go ahead inside. I need some time alone." Sitting on the doorstep, I gazed at the starry sky, reminiscing about fragments of past and present lives. Suddenly, a voice shattered the tranquility. "Mara, the truth is, it's always been you." Erebus' voice came through as he stood there in opulent robes, loosely tied at the waist with just a hint of exposed chest. "During the beast husband selection, I secretly hoped you'd choose me. That's why I sneaked into the manor. For you." Erebus reached out toward me, closing the distance step by deliberate step. I laughed. "So Erebus has been reborn too? Did you come crawling back after realizing Lila wasn't a natural spirit furnace? The me from our past life might have fallen for that pitiful act, but I've already seen your true colors in my previous incarnation. Get away from me." I brushed off his approaching hand. "Mara, it's you I love. What's so great about that tiger? He's just after your special constitution. My feelings for you are genuine. Get lost." I threw the icy remark over my shoulder as I turned toward the courtyard. "Mara." Erebus was actually kneeling behind me, desperately clutching at my skirt. Just as I was about to strike, a white figure flashed by like lightning and kicked Erebus 3 meters away. It was Bran. "Mara belongs to me alone. Who the hell do you think you are, daring to touch her?" Bren held me tightly in his arms, and I could smell the fresh soapy scent on him. Erebus lay on the ground, wiping blood from his lips as his slit pupils glared at me venomously. "Mara, you'll regret this." Bren covered my eyes and said, "Sis, don't look at trash. Look at me when we get back." I wrapped my arms around Bren's neck and let him carry me back inside. Bren laid me on the bed, meticulously exploring every inch of my body before pouting. "Sis, you smell like someone else." I leaned close to his ear and whispered deliberately, "Then, cover it up yourself." "I regret it. I truly, deeply regret it. I never should have teased Bren yesterday. I haven't left this bed for 3 days. Father's health is deteriorating rapidly, making it difficult for him to manage family affairs. The next clan succession ceremony is approaching. All eligible candidates from our generation will compete in the tournament. The beastmen will duel in the arena, and the victor's wife shall become the next clan matriarch." I watched Bren training outside. "I participated in last year's tournament and know all the contenders' capabilities. None could possibly defeat Bren. If everything goes smoothly this year, the position of family head will undoubtedly be mine." Erebus completely vanished after realizing I'd never changed my mind. From the servants' gossip, I heard Erebus is nearing awakening too. Now everyone's saying he'll be the next Dragon King. The moment I heard, I knew Erebus had resorted to dark arts. In our past life, even dual cultivation with my innate sacred furnace constitution wasn't enough for Erebus. He sought countless women for cultivation, yet each emerged with faltering steps, their bodies drained of vitality like boneless puppets. Dark arts remain dark arts. Every time Erebus practiced this method, his spiritual energy would spiral into chaos, and only I could stabilize it. News of his draconic transformation spreads too swiftly. I dread to imagine how turbulent his spiritual energy has become. The clan succession tournament begins soon, and Lila and I were placed in different groups. This means my sister and I won't meet until the final showdown. Bren and I swept through the competition effortlessly. Awakened Bren overpowered every orc opponent. With many forfeiting before matches even began, Erebus's performance was wildly inconsistent. Sometimes dominating easily while barely scraping through other matches. Every time Erebus narrowly won, my sister would look ghastly pale the next day, her steps unsteady, sometimes even bearing fresh wounds on her face. By the time of our final showdown, the 20-year-old Lila had aged like someone in their 60s, her once lustrous raven hair turned brittle and ashen. Those clear bright eyes now clouded and dull. Beneath the fighting ring, she stared at me with manic intensity, muttering under her breath, "I will be the Dragon Queen. I must become the Dragon Queen, sis." Daydreaming in broad daylight, I teased with a playful smile. She suddenly realized her slip of the tongue, pursed her lips, and just stared daggers at me. If looks could kill, I'd have died 100 times over by now. But alas, looks can't kill, only real power can. Could he have been reborn too? The arena battle has reached a fever pitch. Erebus seemed to stake everything, channeling his inner energy wildly as he lunged at Bren like a madman. Pathetic. This is nothing but a mantis trying to stop a chariot. The gap between pre-awakening and post-awakening is an unbridgeable chasm. No amount of Erebus energy absorption can compensate for it. Bren effortlessly dodged every frenzied strike Erebus unleashed. 6. Yet each of Bran's counterblows landed with crushing force on Erebus. Erebus' aura grew increasingly chaotic. I knew he was about to snap. "Bran," I shouted. He understood me instantly with just one glance. Erebus is highly unstable right now. If he rampages, he might even harm the guests. Just as Bran was about to deliver the final blow to Erebus, Lila suddenly spoke up. "Erebus, maybe we should just give up." "I don't want to die." Hearing this, Erebus instantly flew into a rage, his spiritual energy surging wildly as he fixed Lila with crimson eyes burning with hatred. "It's all your fault, you wretched woman. If you hadn't chosen me, I'd be the Dragon King by now. This is all on you." Mid-sentence, he suddenly leaped off the arena platform and charged straight toward Lila. He'd completely lost his mind. Chaotic spiritual energy rampaged through his body, threatening to make him self-destruct at any moment. "No, little sister, save me." She was actually fleeing straight toward me. "Stay away from Mara." I let out a cold laugh. Seeing this, Bren leapt off the platform and kicked Lila in the opposite direction. Lila tumbled across the ground before collapsing, helplessly watching Erebus advance step by step toward her. Erebus suddenly let out a piercing scream of agony. This was the sign of his impending self-destruction. Bren swiftly shielded me beneath him, his body forming an impenetrable barrier. With a thunderous boom, Erebus's body vanished as torrents of spiritual energy erupted, obliterating the entire arena and leaving many spectators severely wounded. I was the only one who came out completely unscathed. Thanks to Bran's protection, Bran only suffered minor flesh wounds on his back, and later playfully insisted I personally apply his medicine. Lila also survived the explosion, but only by grabbing an elderly bystander as a human shield. The old man died instantly, while she merely broke both legs. As the head of this household, I simply cannot allow such a troublemaker to remain as the young mistress of this house, so I banished her to the servants' quarters, where she'll work alongside the maids to atone for her sins once her leg heals. After all, we were sisters once. I still wanted to see Lila one last time. The moment I stepped into the thatched hut, a foul stench assaulted my senses, making me cover my nose in disgust. Lila glared at me with venomous eyes, as if trying to bore holes through me with her gaze. "You did this to me, and you dare show your face, deprived of water." Lila's voice had grown hoarse and grating. "Why wouldn't I come? What exactly can you do to me now?" I looked down at her with pity in my eyes. "Sister, I know you've been reborn, yet in this life you're still living so miserably. It's all your fault. Without you, I would be the family head and the Dragon Queen." Lila tried to push herself up in anger, but collapsed heavily from exhaustion. "Don't worry, sister, I found you a wonderful opportunity." I sat by her bedside, caressing her gaunt face with my soft, delicate hands. The Marquis of Onping's household. The Marquis of Onping was the most powerful noble in the realm, and Lila's eyes instantly lit up. "I knew your good days wouldn't last. Just wait till I marry Lord Onping. We'll see how long your smugness lasts then." My elder sister lifted her haughty chin again, asserting her authority as the firstborn. I couldn't suppress my laughter. "Dearest sister, do you even know why you're being sent to Lord Onping's household?" I took a few steps back. Her stench was simply unbearable. God knows where Lila got the audacity to think Marquis Onping fancied her. "Let me enlighten you. Do you even know who you used as a human shield that day?" Lila's expression froze momentarily, yet she forced herself to say, "Just some ordinary old woman." "Huh, ordinary? That was Marquis Onping's wet nurse who died for you, a woman the entire household revered." Lila froze as if struck by lightning, collapsing rigidly while staring vacantly at the ceiling, no longer responding to my words. The room's putrid stench became unbearable, so I withdrew and had Marquis Onping's men take Lila away. Rumor has it that from then on, The agonized screams of women echoed daily from the secret chambers of the Marquis of Onping's estate. Story 2. During the Dragon Boat Festival, my cousin killed a white serpent by smashing it against the rocks in the back hills, then crushed all its eggs underfoot. That very night, a giant black serpent visited my uncle in his dreams. It declared that since my cousin had slaughtered its family, my uncle's household must pay the price. My uncle sought help from the village shaman, a man of formidable supernatural powers. The sorcerer claimed the black serpent was a demonic snake that had cultivated its power in the 10,000 serpents lair behind the mountain. The white serpent slain by my cousin, along with the crushed snake eggs, were the black serpent's wife and offspring. If uncle offered the serpent a new bride, perhaps its vengeful wrath could be appeased. So my uncle's family decided to compensate the black serpent with me, an orphan who'd lost both parents. Little did they know, this was just the beginning of their nightmare. The cousin knelt before his uncle, weeping bitterly. Father, I had no idea that white serpent was the snake demon's wife. The uncle puffed on his tobacco pipe in silence, making wet smacking sounds, wiping her tears. The aunt pleaded, Husband, didn't the shaman say offering Blair to the serpent demon would appease its wrath? Let's give her away better than our whole family perishing. The uncle remained silent. The pregnant sister-in-law knelt down, twin trails of silent tears streaming down her cheeks. Father, your grandson will be born in 2 months. How could you bear to see him killed by that demon before he even draws breath? My cousin ran over and clung to Uncle's arm, sobbing hysterically. Father, I'm only 13, I don't want to die. Uncle remained silent until his pipe produced no more smoke, then tapped it calmly and said, Prepare Blair's belongings, we'll send her to the serpent pit tonight. 1. Standing in the dim corner, my suspended heart finally turned to stone. For the next 2 hours, I received the kindest treatment I'd known since my parents' passing. Uncle piled my bowl high with meat, Aunt personally bathed me, cousin's wife gifted me her pristine wedding gown she once wore, cousin stopped giving me those creepy sideways glances. For once, my cousin actually gave me a friendly look. That night was moonless and windy, with an eerie silence blanketing everything. My uncle led me with a torch to the entrance of the serpent's lair at the back mountain. He knelt on the ground, offering apologies to the serpent lord, and pledged me as compensation to be his bride, to live or die at his whim. After what felt like an eternity, he staggered to his feet and left reluctantly, wiping away his tears. Ancient trees towered around the serpent pit, forming an abyssal hell where even sunlight couldn't penetrate. The night grew ink black, so dark you couldn't see your own hand before your face. The rustling sound closed in from all directions. I knew it was the slithering of countless snakes and insects. A bone-chilling cold shot up from the soles of my feet, instantly spreading through every limb and seeping into my very marrow, leaving me trembling uncontrollably. I've been terrified of snakes since childhood. Just the thought of countless serpents lurking here makes my scalp crawl. I squeezed my eyes shut, desperately trying to block out everything beyond myself, but this was clearly just self-deception. The thick serpent's tail coiled around my waist, lifting me midair as its cold, damp forked tongue flickered across my face, his scrawny looking, but you smell delicious, tasty morsel. Where should this lord begin his feast? A piercing, shrill male voice accompanied by clammy breath washed over me, venomous and bone-chilling. Trembling, I stammered, Lord Serpent, see could you wait, until I've had my revenge, be before devouring me. The serpent's tail coiled tighter around me, its crushing force threatening to snap my waist into any second, when a mocking voice slithered through the air. Revenge, whose revenge do you seek? Speak, and if it amuses me, I might let you settle your score before devouring you. I gasped through clenched teeth. My uncle and cousin, the crushing pressure around my waist eased momentarily before returning, though this time with less brutal force, trying to trick me with cheap tricks. Never, I bear a grudge against them, I've long wanted to kill them, but their wariness of me was too great. I had no choice but to bide my time. Lord Serpent, grant me a few days, once I've had my vengeance, I'll return and submit to your judgment. Still playing games? Fine. I'll just eat you now. The serpent's forked tongue flicked across my cheek again, savoring its prey. Trembling with fear, I stammered, My father told me the serpent lord walks the righteous path, that harming innocent mortals would damn you to demonhood. Since you cannot take vengeance yourself, let me be your instrument of retribution. The serpent lord chuckled darkly. If you know I cannot slay the innocent, why tremble so before me? To not fear, I lied with straight-faced solemnity. But offer the majesty of the serpent lord, I'm not afraid of being eaten, but snakes terrify me, especially their cold, slithery tongues. The serpent lord snorted and flung me onto the pebble-strewn ground. The fall wasn't high, it stung a little, but no real harm done. I scrambled to my feet and dropped to my knees, head bowed. I simply couldn't bear to look at those eerie, lantern-sized eyes glowing with a ghastly green light. The serpent lord sighed, his shrill voice carrying an ominous Distant echo, your cousin slaughtered my kin. By rights, I should take his life in return, yet the heavens show no justice, because he's merely mortal. Even this blood debt would cost me a century of cultivation if I were to strike him down. If you can eradicate your uncle's entire family within 3 days, I shall grant you freedom. Fail to wipe them out completely in this time, and regardless of how many you've slain, you'll still become my bride. The tone brooked no argument. 3 days was too brief, yet I dared not bargain. Kowtowing, I murmured, my gratitude, serpent lord, just let me slaughter that cousin and uncle, that's all the satisfaction I need. The descent was smooth, and I made it back to the village in less than half the time it took to climb up. I kept a low profile. The serpent lord had warned me the shaman was formidable and told me to stay cautious. My uncle's household was fast asleep as I slipped quietly into the courtyard, standing by the window. I weighed my options and realized taking on both my cousin and uncle at once was impossible, so I held back. Now they're exposed while I remain hidden, allowing me to pick them off one by one. Uncle and aunt toil in the fields every single day. My cousin's a lazybones who can't sit still. He's always wandering off into the mountains for no good reason. I've decided to make my cousin the first target, partly because I hated my cousin most, and partly because he often wandered alone. Just as I expected, the next day my cousin seized the chance while my uncle and aunt were working in the fields, grabbed his bow and arrows, and headed for the back hills. My cousin was extremely alert, so I didn't dare get too close, only following at a distance. Not long after entering the hills, he spotted a wild rabbit. Chasing after it, he ran straight toward a cliff. My cousin was no fool, seeing the rabbit leading him towards certain doom. He instantly realized he'd been tricked and halted just 15 meters from the cliff's edge. I couldn't help but sigh in frustration. Damn vermin, how dare you mess with me? Don't let me catch you next time. My cousin spat in disgust, loosed an arrow at the rabbit, then turned back the way he came. At that very moment, I launched a stone at my cousin with my slingshot. This slingshot had been hidden in the mountains. I'd secretly practiced with it every time I went into the woods, dreaming of the day it would help me avenge my parents. Never did I imagine today would be the day it proved its worth. The stone shot straight and true, striking my cousin square in the left eye. He immediately clutched his face with a howl of pain, but he quickly suppressed the pain, limped up toward my hiding spot, and raised his bow. You bastard, I'll skin you alive today. True to his ruthless nature, my cousin didn't cower when blinded. It only awakened his innate brutality and bloodlust. My cousin advanced step by step. You coward, sneak attacking like a rat but too scared to show your face, you spineless bastard. I stayed perfectly still, remaining hidden behind the tree trunk. Got you now. Cousin Xing drew his machete and charged toward one of the trees. Blair, my cousin's blade struck the tree, only to realize he'd been tricked. It was just a piece of cloth hanging from the branches. Just as he was about to turn around, a black snake dropped from the branch and slithered right into his collar. Though the snake didn't bite my cousin, he was terrified out of his wits, frantically reaching inside his clothes to grab the venomous creature. Get the hell off me. I crept from behind another large tree, circled behind him, and smashed the rock in my hand straight into the back of his skull. Warm blood sprayed across my face. My cousin turned with a scream, reaching desperately for me as his body began failing, swaying briefly before collapsing like a felled tree. I knew I should have rooted them all out. My cousin closed his eyes forever, consumed by endless regret and hatred, his dead stare frozen in eternal resentment. With every ounce of strength, I dragged his corpse to the cliff's edge and kicked it over. Leaning against the tree, I sat numbly staring at my blood-stained hands. Though shaken to the core, I'd never regret this. My parents were both murdered by my cousin. My father was a traveling peddler who'd scraped together modest savings over the years, though never struck it rich. When I turned 10, Dad had saved enough to settle down and live quietly with Mother and me. My cousin was a gambling-addicted good-for-nothing, always short on cash. Seeing my father making good money, he kept pestering him for loans over and over. After too many requests, my father lost patience and refused to lend him any more. My cousin lashed out, swearing he'd get even with my old man one day. Dad thought it was just empty threats in the heat of the moment and didn't take it seriously. One day, my parents were robbed and killed by bandits on their way back from selling game in town. My uncle and aunt handled their funeral arrangements, then used adopting me as an excuse to seize our family's house and farmland, treating me like a servant. Though they treated me poorly, I was still grateful, after all. If they hadn't taken me in, my fate would have been far worse. But before long, I began noticing all sorts of oddities. My perpetually broke cousin who couldn't afford a wife suddenly got married. Uncle upgraded to a brand new pipe and premium tobacco. Even my younger cousin's sister splurged on fancy silk hair ornaments. To my horror, I saw my late mother's silver hairpin, the one meant to be my dowry, adorning my aunt's head. I often fidgeted with the dowry items my mother prepared. until one day I accidentally dropped and damaged that silver hairpin. Terrified as I was, neither parent scolded me, they just reassured me the town silversmith could easily fix it. On the day of their accident, that very hairpin was in my parents' possession. Aunt probably thought the silver hairpin was newly bought by my mother, so she wore it brazenly in public without a second thought. It was then that I realized my cousin's vicious threats against my father weren't just empty words. No wonder Uncle always looked at me with mixed emotions, and regarded me with wariness and disgust. While my cousin occasionally radiated murderous intent toward me, my cousin had tried to kill me more than once. He once pushed me into the river, deliberately shot arrows at me, and took me to an old bachelor's house to be humiliated, but fortunately, I've got 9 lives and narrowly escaped each time. 3. I lived with extreme caution, molding myself into an obedient yet overly cautious person. Yet even so, they still wouldn't let me be. In that case, blood demands blood. Looking down at Blakey the snake who hadn't left after completing its mission, I said with genuine gratitude, "Thank you, Blakey." Had it not intervened with my cousin at that critical moment, I might have killed him but certainly wouldn't have escaped unscathed. Blakey was an intelligent serpent that raised its upper body and cocked its head at me. I said with a laugh, "You're a clever snake. Keep cultivating your skills, and who knows, one day you might become a demon like Lord Serpent." I knew Blakey, just like the rabbit, was sent by Lord Serpent to assist me. Flattery will get you everywhere. Before throwing my cousin off the cliff, I stripped him of anything useful, a machete, a canteen, and 2 plain steamed buns. Before eating, I tore off a small piece and tossed it to Blakey. Blakey showed no interest in the steamed bun, prancing away with an air of disdain. I picked it up from the ground, blew off the dust, and ate it. This was the first time I'd tasted white flour buns since my parents passed away. So delicious. A full belly makes a strong worker. After wolfing down half the steamed bun, he tucked the remainder into his coat and immediately began setting traps on the spot. If cousin doesn't return soon, uncle and aunt are bound to come looking. All I need to do is wait for my prey to come to me. I left my cousin's bow and arrows by the cliff edge, then dug several traps along the path and set animal snares I'd scavenged from the woods. Finally, I scattered dry branches and leaves as camouflage. With everything prepared, I took cover behind a large boulder on higher ground to wait and rest. Uncle and aunt came searching at dawn, carrying torches and calling out as they walked, "My child, where are you?" Aunt's voice was clearly choked with tears. "Blaze, Blaze." Uncle seemed particularly angry. Soon they reached the spot where I'd set the trap. Uncle had an acute sense for the scent of blood. He stopped dead in his tracks, alert. "Wait, what are we waiting for? Our son is missing." The aunt lost her patience and stepped right into the trap, letting out a piercing scream. The uncle quickly snapped out of it and hastily pulled his wife up from the ground. My foot, my foot." The aunt kept wailing in pain. Uncle glanced at aunt's left foot caught in the trap, then at the clearly man-made snare. Warily scanning their surroundings, "Old man, get this off me now," Aunt urged impatiently. "Shut your mouth," Uncle snapped, and opened her mouth to retort, then belatedly sensed something amiss and fell silent. After a brief silence, Uncle spoke to the quiet mountain woods. "Blair, it's you, isn't it?" I never expected Uncle to be so sharp. He actually figured out it was me. Thinking about it, with the Serpent Lord's power, killing them wouldn't require such elaborate measures. That leaves only one possibility. It had to be me, Blair. "It was my decision to send you to the snake pit. I wronged you. Could you please spare your cousin?" My uncle surveyed our surroundings while coaxing me with persuasive words. "I know you resent me, Blair. I'll take whatever punishment you give. I'll return your family house and pay you compensation. Just tell me where your cousin is, please." My aunt stared at the ground when she suddenly noticed some leaves covering long-dried bloodstains. "Dad, look." "What's that?" Uncle followed aunt's pointing finger, then strode past the trap with long steps. He saw not just blood-stained leaves, but also that bloodied stone. Uncle's stooped frame froze for an instant before his knees buckled beneath him. "Girl, if you came for revenge against me, I'd have no complaints, but why target Blaze? He's my only heir." The uncle's mournful weeping now carried unmistakable hatred and murderous intent. I knew it. He wanted me dead. He wasn't even bothering to pretend anymore. Blaze's ruthless cruelty certainly didn't come from that petty, penny-pinching aunt of his. "That's the genuine legacy you got from your hypocritical uncle." During my father's last trip away, I heard scuffling noises coming from my mother's room when I got up at night. I called out from outside the door, and then my uncle slunk out of my mother's room. I was too young back then to understand what was happening. My mother held me and wept, cursing my uncle as a scoundrel while begging me not to tell anyone. That was when father returned and decided never to travel far again. Truth be told, their trips to town weren't just for selling game, they were also scouting houses. Father promised we'd move to town after the new year, taking mother and me with him. That day, I was brimming with joy every single moment. Little did I know, instead of my parents taking me to town, I'd receive news of their tragic death. That evening, Uncle had originally gone out to look for my cousin, yet 4 hours later, he returned with my cousin carrying my parents' lifeless bodies. If my cousin was the murderer, then my uncle was at least an accomplice. They all deserved to die. The uncle didn't wallow in grief for long. He took the bow from his back, nocked an arrow, and strode straight toward the boulder on the slope. By now, dawn was breaking across the sky. Damn my weak arms, I couldn't even draw Blaze's bow. Would have been perfect if I could just shoot him dead. When Blaze's mother realized I'd killed him, she collapsed wailing and cursing. You goddamned worthless bitch, you murdered my son, I'll skin you alive. The aunt stood there cursing for a while before desperately prying open the trap, struggling to her feet and limping forward. She was probably searching for Blaze's corpse. Too bad she'll never find it, for the uncle quickly caught up, tossing his bow aside and reaching for the machete at his waist. Uncle, over here, I shouted. Then as he turned around, I hurled the stone in my hand straight at his head. Caught off guard by my ambush from the tree, he stumbled backward in panic, his right foot landing squarely in the trap before he collapsed with a scream. I leapt down from the branches, snatched another stone from the ground, and flung it at him with all my might. He dodged just in time. The rock missed his head but struck his left hand, drawing another agonized scream. Though injured, Uncle was still a hardened laborer, far stronger and quicker than this half-starved girl. Weak as I was and wounded as he was, we fought to a standstill, neither gaining the upper hand. Hearing the commotion, Aunt abandoned her search for Blaze's body and scrambled toward us in panic. I dared not glance at Aunt's condition, for the slightest distraction would give Uncle the upper hand. This way, I'm surely dead today. At this life-or-death moment, Aunt had crept behind me, raising her cleaver, but the blade never struck. A black snake suddenly dropped from the tree, coiling around her head to blind her. The aunt frantically wrestled with the blacky snake. My blade struck my uncle's waist, draining his strength as he staggered and collapsed sideways, just as I was about to finish him off. Faint voices echoed from the mountain path. With no time to deal with them both, I delivered a final slash to my uncle and kicked the ant down the slope before making a swift escape. I scrambled down the hillside in a panic, with my pursuer doggedly chasing after me. They kept shouting threats to kill me as they ran. Just as they were about to catch me, a massive swarm of snakes suddenly appeared in my path. Gritting my teeth, I plunged straight into the writhing mass of serpents. The pursuers seemed thoroughly intimidated and didn't dare to follow any further. With no destination in mind, I kept running alongside the retreating serpent horde until we reached the serpent's lair. My previous visit had been at night, but this daylight exposure made the sight far more overwhelming. Every conceivable surface, trees, ground, cliff faces, teemed with snakes of every variety. They slithered along, occasionally flicking out crimson forked tongues, staring at me with unblinking intensity, as if eyeing a prime cut of meat. Sunlight seemed trapped above the treetops, leaving even the sweltering day permeated with a bone-chilling gloom. The soaked clothes clung to my skin, every pore saturated with an endless, creeping cold. Blair, you've only killed 2 people. From the stone cavern came the Serpent Lord's signature shrill voice, slimy, sinister, like viscous venom that completely enveloped my body, shivering uncontrollably from the cold. I still tried to bargain for my chance. Lord Serpent, the 3-day deadline hasn't passed yet. I still have time. The Snake Lord scoffed. The shaman's already onto our deal. If you go back to the village now, you'll be turned into a pincushion before you even set foot inside. But they're probably using your aunt as bait, just waiting for you to walk right into their trap. I was completely speechless. The one I most wanted dead is already dead. Whether my aunt lives or dies doesn't particularly concern me. Having lost both husband and son, life holds little joy for her now. In that case, the Serpent Lord drawled with unyielding authority, you shall honor our agreement and become my bride. The word no rose instinctively to my lips, but I remembered this was a pact I'd made. There could be no going back. But, Lord Serpent, I'd like to take one last look at the village. The Serpent Lord scoffed. Go see for yourself then, you fool. I didn't dare get too close, instead climbing a tall tree with good visibility to observe from afar. Just as the Serpent Lord predicted, villagers are guarding every entrance to the village, lying in wait for me to walk into their trap. Only this elusive sorcerer could command such formidable influence over the people. I retreated sullenly, careful to avoid being spotted by any unexpected mountain visitors. On the path back to the serpent's lair, I wavered endlessly between ending it all and becoming the Serpent Lord's bride. If the Serpent Lord were the Tiger Lord or Wolf Lord, I'd have agreed without hesitation, but a serpent is still a serpent. The mere thought makes my skin crawl. Becoming its spouse is utterly unthinkable. Then death it shall be. After all, I've already slain the one I most wanted dead. By the time I resolved to end my own life, I'd already reached the outskirts of the serpent abyss. As I rounded the final corner, I saw the serpent's lair engulfed in raging flames, with the pungent stench of sulfur assaulting my nostrils. The ground was littered with mutilated snake carcasses of every kind, a truly spine-chilling sight. Someone attacked the serpent lord. Who would dare? My first instinct was to investigate, but then it occurred to me that whoever attacked the serpent lord might still be there. So I withdrew my outstretched foot. I cautiously tipped 2 steps back, and just as I was about to turn away, something fell from above. Instinctively, I raised my hands to catch it. It was the same Blakey snake that had helped me earlier, now gravely injured and barely clinging to life. After a moment's hesitation, I mustered my courage and tucked it into my robe. I didn't dare stop, pushing deeper into the dense woods until nightfall completely enveloped the forest. Exhausted, I finally found a sheltered spot to rest. Parched, starving, and utterly spent, I fished out a flatbread from my coat, wolfed down a few bites and gulped some water. Gradually regaining some strength, I pulled Blakey from my coat for inspection. Still breathing, but barely hanging on. Remembering how it had helped me twice before, I tucked it back inside my coat, resolved to dispose of it only after its last breath. The summer night wasn't too chilly, and being accustomed to hunger and cold, I soon fell asleep. That night, I had a bizarre and erotic dream. A handsome man in black told me he was about to kick the bucket and wanted to practice dual cultivation with me. I didn't understand what dual cultivation meant, so I asked him to explain. He said dual cultivation meant becoming husband and wife. He was so gentle, and with his handsome looks, I couldn't bear to see him die, so I agreed in a daze. The dream felt incredibly real, but I forgot every bit of it the moment I woke up. The next morning, I woke up refreshed, stretching lazily when suddenly I felt an icy chill in my chest, like I was carrying a block of ice. A sudden realization hit me. I yanked up the culprit and flung it to the ground. How dare this scaly pervert slither into my undergarments while I slept? The impact woke Blakey, who lifted his head and stared at me blankly before slithering over to a sapling, coiling around it in obvious irritation, knowing he possessed intelligence. I began lecturing him like a misbehaving child. You're the one who harassed me first, yet you have the nerve to be angry. That's completely unreasonable. The Blakey snake glanced at me before looking away, clearly uninterested in listening. I gave up on the naive idea of reasoning with it. Even if it's intelligent, it's still a snake. Trying to reason with it is like playing the lute to a cow. I'll let it slide this time. But don't push your luck next time. I raised my knife and made a slashing motion. Blakey the snake shot me a cold glare that triggered a familiar sense of danger, like a sudden wake-up call. It's a snake, the one thing I fear most, even if it seems harmless now. I shouldn't underestimate it. I reluctantly sheathed my knife, staring blankly at the endless expanse of mountains. Will I even make it out of here alive? And even if I do escape, where would I belong? Blakey, which way should we go? The snake. Blakey paused, slithered down from the tree trunk, climbed up my leg, and coiled around my left arm, its tiny head pointing southwest. Trusting Blakey's judgment, I moved forward in the direction it indicated. When thirsty, I drank from the stream. When hungry, I foraged for wild berries. Ever since I mastered fire-making, Blakey would occasionally bring back rabbits or pheasants during my breaks. Blakey's wounds gradually healed, yet it still insisted on coiling around my arm. 5. I must admit, familiarity breeds comfort. After spending these days together, I've grown accustomed to Blakey's touch. Every night, I'd share intimate moments with that man in black within my dreams, only to forget everything upon waking. Despite roughing it through the journey, I grew increasingly energetic. My complexion even improved miraculously, defying all logic. After about half a month navigating treacherous swamps under Blakey's guidance, we arrived at a place straight out of fairyland. Lush greenery stretched beneath birdsong and floral scents, where crystal-clear streams meandered through the landscape. I waded into the stream and washed my face with refreshing delight. Blakey slid off my arm and began following the current downstream. Having long considered it my sole companion, I hurried after it downstream in desperation. After about 15 minutes, we reached the stream's end, a bottomless lake stretching before us. Without hesitation, Blakey swam straight into the lake. Afraid it might leave me behind, I anxiously called out, "Blakey." Blakey glanced back at me before slowly sinking beneath the surface. Was it abandoning me? I slumped onto the grass and wept helplessly in despair. Moments later, Blakey resurfaced. It tossed me a massive grass carp coiled in its serpentine tail, shot me a disdainful look, then submerged again. As the carp tried to flop back into the lake, I snapped out of my melancholy and quickly pinned it down. I gutted the grass carp with my knife, then built a fire to roast and eat it. With my stomach full, I realized my sorrow had eased, and I curled up by the lakeside to sleep. In my dreams, the man who'd been my husband for half a month reappeared, looking exasperated as he said, "I'm recovering at the bottom of the lake. Wait for me." About a month. This time, I didn't forget the dream. Now I understand everything. The husband in my dreams was Blakey, and Blakey is the Serpent Lord, strangely. I don't dislike him anymore. When he said wait for me, my heart leaped with joy. When I woke the next morning, I was covered by a massive snakeskin shed, which I instinctively threw off in shock. The next moment, I remembered this was Blakey's hide, so my fear subsided and I quickly picked it back up. Nearby lay a simple dress crafted from shed snakeskin. Glancing at my tattered rags of clothing, I decided to wash up before changing, but first, I needed to catch a fish from the stream to fill my belly. The thought had barely crossed my mind when a huge grass carp leaped from the lake, landing right at my feet. Delighted, I scooped up the fish and called out to the lake, "Thank you, Blakey." Ripples disturbed the mirror-like surface before quickly settling back into stillness. After the meal, I stood in the stream to wash my hair and body. Sunlight danced on the water's surface, scattering dazzling sparkles that took my breath away. The lake behind me rippled gently until I put on the snakeskin suit. The grass felt wonderfully soft beneath my bare feet. Living here like this wouldn't be so bad after all. 3 fish leaped from the lake every day without fail, morning, noon, and evening. With nothing better to do, I'd spend entire days sitting by the shore, watching the water's surface. Sometimes I'd wander away from the lake to forage wild berries, a pleasant change of pace. Blakey no longer visits my dreams, but knowing he rests beneath the lake brings me comfort. 27 days passed in the blink of an eye, just 2 or 3 more days until I see Blakey, and I'm growing more impatient by the minute. On the morning of the 28th day, I suddenly jolted awake from my sleep, bolting upright to find myself face to face with a silver-haired old man. "Ha, is that Blakey? Coming out early is one thing, but why'd you turn into an old man?" "No way, you're lucky to be alive." Having caught his eye, the old man said coldly. I froze in my tracks. That voice, I knew it well. It was none other than the great sorcerer. The sorcerer came to our village 5 years ago, skilled in both medicine and divination. He earned the villagers' reverence as the great sorcerer. I've seen him a few times, but he never showed his face properly, so I don't know what he looks like. I stumbled backward in fear, my right hand reaching for the machete hidden beneath the snakeskin blanket, when suddenly an invisible force froze me in place. The sorcerer gave a kindly smile. "Little one, I mean you no harm. Just bring Zephyr out, and I'll let you go." I stammered. "We're just passing acquaintances. I'm not that important to him." The sorcerer's pupils slit into crimson vertical slits, his voice growing increasingly sinister. "Zephyr values loyalty above all. He'd even protect his mother's reincarnation. As his wife, he'd never abandon you." Zephyr's mother's reincarnation, the white serpent. "Exactly, that's how it should be." Uncle said the black serpent claimed in a dream that his cousin murdered his family. The shaman declared the white serpent and serpent eggs were the black serpent's wife and offspring. He deceived our uncle. My gut tells me a sorcerer must have been behind my cousin killing the white serpent. What's his real motive? To force Zephyr into murder. Why are you trying to harm Zephyr? That's none of your concern. Since you refuse to talk, don't blame me for what comes next. The sorcerer gripped my throat and shouted at the lake, "Zephyr, if you don't show yourself by the count of 3, I'll kill your wife." 3, 2, a massive black python emerged from the lakebed, its enormous eyes glowing with an eerie green light as they fixed unblinkingly on the sorcerer. 2 prominent bulges had formed on its head, as if horns were about to sprout. The sorcerer showed no fear, letting out an arrogant laugh. On the verge of draconic transformation, "Zephyr, you truly are formidable." "Zephyr, fighting would leave us both crippled. Share half your core with me, and I'll release her. With your talent, you'd recover in about 5 centuries. Zephyr wavered, then gave a hesitant nod. My heart burned with urgency. My cousin's experience taught me, when you weed, you must pull up the roots. The sorcerer would never let either of us leave here alive. How can a serpent demon be this stupid? "Zephyr, if you share half your core with him, today will be the death of us both." Silence. The sorcerer did something to me. I couldn't speak another word. Fortunately, Zephyr didn't hesitate. He suddenly struck, his massive serpent tail slamming down toward the sorcerer's head. When the sorcerer realized I couldn't be used to threaten Zephyr, he instantly snapped my neck. In that final moment before darkness took me, I saw Zephyr launch a frenzied assault on the sorcerer. Just when I thought I'd be forever lost in the void of darkness, I woke up again in the dimly lit stone cavern, but something felt off. To my horror, I realized I was lying within a massive coil formed by an enormous black serpent. Even more terrifying, my lower body had transformed into a serpent's tail. Terror stole my voice, trapping my scream in my throat. The black serpent startled awake, lifting its head toward me before morphing into a dark-clad young man who pulled me into a tight embrace. "Axel killed you. I had to use half my core to revive you. Now you're half Yao. Don't worry, once you've cultivated enough, you'll regain full human form." I gradually calmed in Zephyr's less-than-warm embrace, taking what felt like forever to accept my new half-demon reality. Later, Zephyr patiently taught me how to use my serpent tail. 6. After a month, I'd mostly adapted to my half-human, half-serpent form and could skillfully maneuver my tail to accommodate my feelings. Zephyr also maintained his half-human, half-serpent appearance. Several more days passed. At night, Zephyr pressed against me with lingering intimacy, his serpentine tail restlessly entwining with mine. Blair, my mating season has begun. I'd mentally prepared for this moment, yet before consenting, I needed answers to the questions weighing on me. Why did you choose me as your mate? Wasn't it your uncle who gave you to me? Just like that. What else? I thought there was some life-saving favor between you two that I didn't know about. You're such a shameless snake. How am I shameless? Zephyr grumbled discontentedly. I just fell for you at first sight. I remained skeptical of this answer. Zephyr's side story. Axel and I were brothers hatched from the same clutch of snake eggs. At first, we practiced our cultivation together with diligence. Later, Axel grew impatient with the slow progress and turned to dark arts, feeding on human life essence to accelerate his cultivation. Our paths diverged when our principles became irreconcilable. Feeling lonely in my solitary cultivation, I sought out the white serpent that carried my mother's reincarnated soul. I tried guiding the serpent onto the path of cultivation, but lacking any innate talent, our efforts came to nothing. Axel, having committed countless evils, faced divine retribution. Not only was he grievously wounded, but heavenly lightning shattered his core. Unwilling to accept his impending demise, he came to me for help, demanding half of my core. I naturally refused. Undeterred, Axel remained in the village as a sorcerer, winning over the villagers while plotting to steal my inner core. The day of the Dragon Boat Festival was when I was at my weakest. Axel incited Blaze to kill the white serpent in the back mountains while personally keeping me occupied. He tried to use the white serpent's death to force me into killing innocent mortals, knowing divine retribution would cripple my cultivation. This would give him the perfect chance to slay me, steal my golden core and extend his own wretched life, though I didn't take the bait. Cutting my seclusion short caused chi deviation that left me severely wounded. When Axel saw I wouldn't seek mortal vengeance, he schemed to have the Wynn family deliver Blair as my bride, another provocation, but I still didn't fall for it. Axel knew I was injured and later ambushed me at the serpent's den. Though I narrowly escaped, my wounds worsened. Thankfully Blair returned. She didn't abandon me and helped me flee. I just knew she had feelings for me, but my injuries were too severe. I was on death's door, to cling to life. I had no choice but to lure her into spiritual cultivation with me in dreams. Later, Blair asked why I chose her to be my wife. I told her it was love at first sight. She seemed skeptical, but I genuinely fell for her at first sight. Though it was our first meeting, I felt like I'd been waiting for this moment forever. Story 2. On the day before the end of the world arrived, I heard my husband's inner thoughts. I was actually reborn. In my previous life, it was because I didn't expect this heavy rain to last so long, so I didn't let my wife hoard supplies, which led to our whole family starving to death in the apocalypse. In this life, I must survive. As for this bitch, I can just take this opportunity to kill her, and then the house will be mine. My husband secretly came up with the idea of getting rid of his wife and keeping the house, but he didn't know that I learned about his entire plan through his inner thoughts. What he didn't know even more was that my parents had also privately bought me a house in the building next door. In this life, I want to watch this scumbag set himself on fire. 1. I was binge-watching a drama at home on the weekend. When I was deeply engrossed in it, my husband, who was sleeping on the sofa, suddenly sat up with a start. I looked at him in confusion. The next second, his voice came to my ears. "What's going on? Didn't I already die?" I didn't delve into what he meant by that sentence because I discovered something even weirder. That was that my husband didn't open his mouth the whole time, but that voice was clearly my husband's. Before I could think carefully, that voice continued. December 15th, isn't this the day before the end of the world? I was actually reborn to the day before the end of the world. Great, in my previous life, it was because I didn't expect this heavy rain to last so long. So I didn't let my wife hoard supplies, resulting in all 4 of us in our family starving to death in the apocalypse. In this life, I must take my parents and survive in this apocalypse. As for this bitch, I can just take this opportunity to kill her, so that the house will be mine. After the heavy rain passes, I can live as freely as I want. I looked at the man in a trance in front of me in disbelief, and my heart grew colder and colder. To verify whether I could really hear my husband's inner thoughts, I tentatively said, "Husband, I saw in the weather forecast that there will be a heavy rain tonight. I don't know how long it will last. How about you go to the supermarket and buy some things back?" When he heard my voice, Conrad came back to his senses and turned to look at me. Then, that voice sounded again. In my previous life, the weather forecast showed that there would be a heavy rain at 10 p.m., but in fact, This heavy rain will start at 7 p.m. and last for more than 3 months. I can take advantage of this information gap and let this bitch hoard all the supplies for us before 7 p.m. and then use the excuse that there are still 2 hours left to keep her in the supermarket. When the heavy rain starts, she will definitely not be able to make it back. Thinking like this, a smile appeared on Conrad's face, and he said, "Wife, I don't have any money on me. And you know that I caught a cold a few days ago. If I go out in such cold weather, I will definitely get a fever and get sick. It's only 4 p.m. now. Didn't the weather forecast say that the heavy rain will start at 10 p.m.? How about you go and buy the things, wife? If you can't carry them all at once, you can make 2 trips, one at 7 p.m. and one at 10 p.m. After hearing his words, the hope in my eyes completely faded away. He really hoped that I could die in this heavy rain. Since he is so heartless, don't blame me for being ruthless. I didn't really like this man when I chose to marry Conrad. I just simply took a fancy to his face and thought that although this man achieved nothing, at least he had a good-looking face and was also nice to me. Although my parents had opposed it, they agreed under my repeated insistence, and in order to support me and prevent me from being bullied in my husband's family, they took the initiative to cancel the betrothal gift and also bought a wedding house for us. Of course, it was written in my name, but unexpectedly, Conrad's parents were still not satisfied. They even embarrassed me at the wedding, thinking that the wedding house should be written in the man's name, and they shamelessly moved into the new house on the first day of our marriage. I don't know what kind of bewitching soup I was fed at that time, but I didn't get angry even in such a situation. It should be from that time on that Conrad came up with the idea of getting rid of his wife and keeping the house, but he didn't expect that I could actually hear his inner thoughts and also learned about his entire plan. More importantly, my parents really love me. In order to have a place for me to go when I am wronged in the future, they bought me another house in the building next door, and Conrad didn't know about this matter, too. After thinking briefly for 2 or 3 seconds, I replied briskly, "Okay, then you and your parents just wait for me at home. I will definitely buy a lot of things and bring them back." But unexpectedly, the first person to object to me was my mother-in-law. "Don't go. There's really no law and order in this family anymore. When did a woman start taking charge of the money in a family? Fiona, it's not that mom is criticizing you. You are a married woman now. The money you earn is no longer just yours. You should think more about this family." Perhaps before today, if I heard these words, I would subconsciously examine myself to see if I had really done something wrong. Fortunately, I had already heard Conrad's inner thoughts and understood that no matter how well I did, I would always be an outsider in their eyes, just a money bag in their view. I glanced indifferently at Conrad and found that he didn't seem to want to say anything. A family of vampires. Mom, I married Conrad, not signed an indenture. Stand up and take a good look. Which thing in this house didn't cost my money, including the bird's nest you take out of the refrigerator every day? My mother-in-law was left speechless by my retort and hurriedly turned to my father-in-law for help. If we were to talk about who in this family had the most scheming, my father-in-law was definitely the number one. My father-in-law was a smiling tiger. He would sell you out while smiling. Fiona, your mother-in-law's words are unpleasant. Don't be angry. As parents, we all hope that our children can live in harmony. We have seen all your efforts. Any family outside would envy us for having a daughter-in-law like you, but you are young and have no experience in many things. As elders, we should give you some appropriate guidance. Although your mother-in-law's words are not pleasant to hear, there is some truth in them. When we are at home, we can ignore who is in charge of the money, but we can't let others laugh at us. Conrad is a grown man, and if it gets out that he doesn't have a penny in his hand, who knows how others will laugh at us anyway? As long as the family is harmonious, it doesn't matter who is in charge of the money. Fiona, don't you think so? It's really hard for him to have said such a long string of words without forgetting to get to the point. I also smiled and imitated my father-in-law, saying, "Dad, I really don't understand what you're saying. Although it said that it doesn't matter who is in charge of the money, it seems to me that you're implying that Conrad should be in charge of the money. Furthermore, I'm also quite curious about where exactly Conrad's money has been spent. I heard that the down payment for my brother-in-law's new house was paid a few days ago." As soon as I finished speaking, I saw my father-in-law's face turn black instantly. It's not enough for this family of 3 to eat and drink at my expense. They even want to support their younger son. I clapped my hands cheerfully, stood up, and said, "I'm going out. The weather outside is not good. You just wait for me at home. You must wait for me obediently." 3. As soon as I went out, I drove straight to the supermarket. Although my salary was not high, only 5,000 yuan a month, but my pocket money was high. My parents would transfer 50,000 yuan of pocket money to my card every month. Thinking of this, I quickly called my parents. "Hello, my dear daughter." As soon as the call connected, The voices of my parents came from the receiver. I held back my grievances and asked eagerly, "Mom and Dad, where are you now? What's wrong? Dear daughter, are you being wronged? We're traveling in Austria now. Did Conrad bully you? We'll book the next flight and come back right away." Hearing this, I heaved a sigh of relief and was also a little touched. "I'm not being bullied. You have a good time in Austria. It's just that there may be some news coming out in a while. There will be a long-lasting heavy rain here, but don't worry about me. I've already hoarded supplies and will definitely get through this heavy rain safely." After a brief exchange of pleasantries with my parents, I also successfully arrived at the supermarket. As soon as I got out of the car, my phone received a notification. Alipay received 500,000 yuan. There's nothing like parents in the world. I needed to purchase supplies for 3 months at one time, and my small car was definitely not enough, but if the vehicle was too big, it would arouse everyone's suspicion, and when the end of the world came, everyone would think of me first. After thinking for a long time, I finally came up with a perfect solution when my parents bought that house. It took a lot of time for the decoration. In order to ventilate it as soon as possible, they didn't buy any furniture, and this matter has been put on hold until now. Just right, I could use the excuse of moving furniture to hide all the supplies in the furniture. At the same time, I could also avoid being looted by the people on the same floor when the end of the world came. After all, how could there be any extra supplies in the house of someone who had just moved in after the decoration? After solving my worries, I began to concentrate on preparing the supplies. According to the known information, this heavy rain might last for 3 months, then there was a high possibility that the water and electricity would be cut off at that time, so I couldn't buy too few bottles of mineral water, at least 50 cases, buy 40 cases each of self-heating hot pot and self-heating rice, buy 50 packs of compressed biscuits as well, choose fruits that can be stored for a long time. Buy 20 cases each of apples and peaches. You can buy more canned fruits, 20 cans of each kind. Buy 50 caddies each of steak and cured meat. Flour can satisfy hunger and can be stored for a long time. Buy 100 caddies. For vegetables, you can choose those that can be eaten raw, such as cucumbers and tomatoes. Buy 10 caddies of each. You can also buy some snacks like potato chips, milk, chocolate, and bread. Next, I still needed to buy daily necessities. Buy 50 packs of toilet paper, 40 packs of sanitary napkins, 10 packs of salt, 5 packs of brown sugar, 300 warming patches, 100 garbage bags. Some commonly used medicines were essential, such as cold medicine, ibuprofen, disinfectant, antidiarrheal medicine, vitamins, and so on. Buy more lighting equipment and lighters as well. They will be useful at critical moments. Buy 100 power banks, which will be convenient for me to watch the downloaded TV dramas. Buy 50 batteries of each model as well. In addition, in order to deal with the worst-case scenario and protect my personal safety, I also needed to buy some self-defense items. Buy 5 bottles of anti-wolf spray, a toy gun, 2 kitchen knives, 5 fruit knives, and a saw. After purchasing these things, I went to the flower and bird market and bought several pots of soil and several packs of seeds. In the later stage, the fruits and vegetables would definitely go bad, and I could only rely on growing them myself. After packing these things together with the furniture, I contacted a cargo transportation service, for, by this time, it was already 6:30 p.m. Conrad had already called me several times, but I was too busy to answer. As soon as I picked up the phone and called him back, the next second, his urgent voice came from the receiver. "Wife, it's almost 7 p.m, why haven't you come back yet? If there are too many things, you can bring back part of them first." I was unhurried and said slowly, "Husband, don't worry, I'll come back after buying some more fruits. Don't come out since you have a cold." "Okay, then hurry up." In order to hide my tracks, I bought a set of clothes in the mall, changed into them, put on a wig, sunglasses, and a mask, and took a taxi back to the community. At 6:50 p.m., I arrived at the community, and at the same time, all the furniture was moved into the house. After telling the truck driver to go home quickly, I lay comfortably on the sofa, ding-ling-a-ling. I answered the phone. Before the other side could speak, I took the lead and said, "Husband, the car is out of gas, and there are still a lot of things in the car. Can you drive to pick me up?" There were a few curses from the other end of the phone. A few seconds later, Conrad's voice came again. "Wife, it's too late. You should take a taxi now and pack as many things as you can. I'll pick you up downstairs in the community." I sneered in my heart, but on the surface, I still answered obediently, "Okay, I will definitely come back with the things as soon as possible. Husband, you must wait for me." After hanging up the phone, I raised my eyes and looked out the window. The gloomy dark clouds were pressing lower and lower, as if I could touch them with a wave of my hand. The last ray of sunlight was also covered by the dark clouds, and it was clearly a sign of an impending storm. There were still 5 minutes The whole world had already fallen into a grayish gloom, and the temperature began to drop sharply. There were still 4 minutes, the window glass was covered with a layer of mist, and the wind began to howl. There were still 3 minutes, the outside world was already in chaos, with all kinds of garbage and plastic flying around. There were still 2 minutes, the phone rang suddenly, and it sounded particularly ethereal in the silent room. There was still 1 minute, the unanswered phone rang tirelessly over and over again, and the passionate drumbeat struck someone's heart. After a long time, the person on the other side finally gave up, and the drumbeat that had reached its climax suddenly stopped. At the same time, a drop of water ran down the glass window. The long-accumulated heavy rain finally arrived. 5. Taking advantage of the fact that there was still hot water, I took a comfortable hot bath. Then I filled all the containers in the house with water. By the time I was almost done tidying up, I was already starving. I didn't know when the water and electricity would be cut off, so in the early stage, I would eat up all the things that needed to be cooked first. At 10 p.m., while eating the fragrant steak, I used a tablet to open the surveillance video of the camera in the living room at home. To my surprise, there were quite a few foods placed on the living room table. Conrad's voice came clearly to my tablet through the camera. "It's all that bitch's fault for being too slow. She spent so much time and didn't bring anything back." Fortunately, I realized it was too late and quickly went to the convenience store downstairs to buy some things. Otherwise, we'd all starve to death. Although there aren't many things, if we save a bit, we should be able to get through 3 months. It's good that that bitch is dead. In the future, her money and house will all be ours. Hearing this, my mother-in-law's face was wrinkled into a mass with a smile. I've already called Cyrus and asked him to stock up on more things at home. As long as we get through these 3 months, we'll enjoy endless happiness in the future. Looking at their harmonious family appearance, I calmly curved the corners of my mouth. Just wait a little longer, a bigger storm is coming soon. Early the next morning, everyone who woke up from their sleep saw such a scene. The roads in the city had already been flooded by rainwater. All kinds of garbage and dead animals were floating in it. However, the heavy rain was still falling. The dark and oppressive sky weighed on everyone's heartstrings. The residents on the first floor had already moved their things and moved into the corridors of the higher floors. No one could tell how long this heavy rain would last. I turned on the TV, and the news channel was reporting on this heavy rain. Some experts analyzed that this heavy rain won't last too long, but some scholars believe that this is an extremely rare and long-lasting heavy rain that occurs once in 100 years. But no matter what the result is, please pay attention to your safety. Please stay indoors and avoid going out. Our station will continue to report for you. After watching the news, I reported my safety to my parents again and then made myself a breakfast. Along with the heavy rain came a sudden drop in temperature. Compared with yesterday, the temperature dropped by 20 degrees in a straight line. The further it went, the lower the temperature might be. I opened a quilt and stuffed the disassembled cotton wool into the gaps of all the windows. I found a few wooden planks and reinforced all the windows. Only after finishing all this did I feel a little relieved, although I could still turn on the air conditioner with electricity now. In order to adapt to the sudden drop in temperature as soon as possible, I chose to wear a few more clothes. Lying on the sofa and taking a sip of hot water, I turned on the surveillance video and found that the situation opposite was much worse. Conrad really caught a cold a few days ago. He went out to buy things in cold weather before he fully recovered. Coupled with the sudden drop in temperature, he fell ill all of a sudden. I usually like to stock up on medicine, but because my family rarely gets sick, I have to throw away large and small packages of medicine every time it expires. After being sarcastically remarked by my mother-in-law several times, I finally compromised. In the surveillance video, my mother-in-law rummaged through boxes and cabinets looking for medicine, and kept cursing. "Didn't that bitch like buying medicine the most? Where on earth did that bitch hide these medicines? She really deserves to die, even when she's dead. She still makes people worry." Conrad was wrapped in a quilt and kept coughing. "Mom, hurry up and ask in the group if other families have any medicine. We should buy more medicine and stock up on it. The temperature will get lower and lower later." "Okay, sure." My mother-in-law quickly agreed and picked up her phone to start scrolling. The next second, my phone received a notification sound from the homeowners group. I clicked in and saw the message sent by my mother-in-law. 2104. "Does anyone in your family have cold medicine? My son is sick and urgently needs cold medicine now. If you have any, please contact me as soon as possible." Within a few seconds, someone replied below. 1801, "Hello, we have cold medicine at home, but not much. We can give you a few packs." 2104, "What's the use of a few packs?" Resident of 1801, "How much does cold medicine cost?" Don't be too selfish. There's no one in your family with a cold. What are you keeping the cold medicine for? The person from 1801 who kindly offered cold medicine was scolded, and they were so angry that they directly sent a voice message to scold back. Seeing this, other homeowners all pretended not to see the group messages. Mom, do you want to kill me? Now look, no one is willing to give us cold medicine. Conrad was so angry when he saw the group messages that he coughed violently. 6. The heavy rain kept falling continuously. On the 7th day, the building completely lost water and electricity. At the same time, the water level had risen to the 5th floor, but the heavy rain still showed no sign of stopping. The residents on the lower floors could only pack up their things at home and move to the stairwells of the higher floors. However, the difficulties they had to face this time were not only the heavy rain but also the extremely low temperature. In the homeowners group, every day, you could see messages from the residents on the lower floors begging the residents on the higher floors to take them in, but no one ever replied. In the face of disaster, everyone chose to protect themselves, and soon, an even greater disaster was about to come. That was human nature. The heavy rain had been falling for a whole week. Many households had almost run out of food. Moreover, now there was no water, electricity, or internet. No one knew when this disaster would end, so some people had the idea of stealing the supplies of the residents in the corridor. The residents living in the corridor were the first to be looted. In the face of hunger, morality was no longer important. Although I felt pity for their experiences, I knew that there were so many people that I couldn't save them all. I might even put myself in danger if I wasn't careful. After the water and electricity were cut off, my phone also lost its signal. However, the surveillance camera in the living room at home didn't need to be connected to the internet or plugged in, so I could still observe the situation of Conrad's family through the tablet. Unexpectedly, a week had passed. Without cold medicine, Conrad managed to pull through by himself. Now that there's no electricity, we can't even turn on the air conditioner. Aren't we going to freeze to death? In the video, my mother-in-law kept pacing back and forth, rubbing her arms vigorously. Old woman, stop moving around. We don't have much food. If you keep walking around, we'll consume it even faster. My father-in-law, as someone who had experienced hard times, still knew that moving less could reduce consumption. But it's so cold. They cut off the electricity without even giving a notice in advance. These heartless people. Human joys and sorrows are not the same. I was eating self-heating rice, with warming patches on my body, and some fruits for dessert on the table. When I was bored, I could watch the downloaded TV dramas. When I sat for too long, I could get up and water the potted plants, except that I couldn't communicate with the outside world. My life was quite comfortable. Another week passed, and almost every household was running out of food. Every day, there would be crying and quarreling echoing in the corridor. On the 16th day after the heavy rain, someone rang the doorbell of my house. Noisy voices came from the crack of the door. Is anyone there? Do you have any extra supplies? We're really starving. If you have extra supplies, we can buy them from you with money. In addition, several cries of children also came intermittently through the crack of the door. I bit my lip and held my breath. It's not that I don't want to save them, I just really can't trust human nature in the apocalypse. There is no savior in the apocalypse, only fools with remaining humanity. After a few more violent knocks on the door, a woman's voice came, with sympathy in her tone. I think I've seen the resident of room 2205. She moved in on the first day of the heavy rain. She's probably starved to death at home by now. After a short silence, the group of people gave up knocking on the door, and the scattered footsteps gradually faded away. I could only apologize silently in my heart. 7. On the 25th day, some people in the building started to starve to death. The continuous crying sound spread to every corner of the quiet corridor, but the heavy rain was still falling. The water level had risen to the 7th floor. The fresh vegetables and fruits started to rot, and I just buried them in the soil as fertilizer. Before my canned fruits were all eaten up, a new crop of strawberries would grow. I couldn't eat anything with a strong smell either because hunger would magnify people's sense of smell. Even a little bit of food with a smell might expose me. After simply eating some bread and milk, I turned on the surveillance video again. Since there was no electricity and the air conditioner couldn't be turned on, my mother-in-law fell ill. For an elderly person, even a common cold was difficult to recover from. Until now, my mother-in-law had been coughing non-stop. Cough, cough. Conrad, Mom wants to drink some hot water. In the video, Conrad, who was lying on the sofa, looked impatient. Mom, the natural gas can't be used anymore. Where can I get hot water for you? Hearing this, my mother-in-law sighed. It's still better in our hometown. Once the firewood is burned, we can eat hot meals. I moved to the city to help you fight for the house, but now I can't even have a sip of hot water. Did you do it for me? You just came here to enjoy the good life, right? Besides, the terrain in our hometown is so low. It was flooded on the first night of the heavy rain. My mother-in-law's lips twitched a few times after being retorted, then she said angrily, "What's wrong? Do you want me to die sooner? Do you wish that I was drowned in our hometown now so that no one would share the food with you?" Conrad defended himself helplessly. "Mom, that's not what I meant." My father-in-law, who had been resting with his eyes closed, interrupted. Stop it, both of you, say less, hold on a little longer. It'll be okay after getting through these 2 months. Another week passed, and there were gradually no more sobbing sounds in the corridor. On the one hand, people had recognized the reality that crying was completely useless. On the other hand, they had been hungry for too long and didn't have the strength to cry anymore. Some families that had pets had desperately killed their pets in despair. The shrill screams echoed in everyone's ears, but no one spoke out against it. Everyone was so hungry that their eyes turned red, and they couldn't wait to rush forward and fight for a piece of meat. I stood in front of the one-way glass window and watched all this happen indifferently. This was the first drop of blood in the apocalypse. It opened the chapter of the apocalyptic killing with life. When there were no animals to eat, humans were also animals. On the 39th day, I encountered a problem. Since the urban system collapsed, the sewers in the bathroom, kitchen, etc., were blocked. And if I left my daily garbage indoors, it would produce a smell. So, for the past 38 days, I had been putting the garbage into garbage bags and then throwing it into the turbulent water downstairs in the middle of the night, quietly eliminating the traces of the garbage I produced along with the water flow. But just when I got up today, I suddenly heard a cry of surprise coming from the opposite building. "Look, this garbage bag is full of packaging bags of all kinds of food. It must have been thrown by someone last night. The rain has been lighter these 2 days, and the water flow isn't as turbulent, so this bag of garbage wasn't washed away. Search house by house. There must be someone hoarding supplies privately." 8. Immediately, the people in the 2 buildings started a massive search. I was so nervous that my heart was pounding wildly. The current residents had already gone crazy with hunger. If they found me, it wouldn't be just about stealing food. What should I do? What should I do? The neat and massive footsteps were getting closer and closer, and clearer, as if the enemy army of thousands of troops was about to attack the city gate. At the same time, what happened on the opposite building tugged at my heartstrings again. A mother desperately tried to protect the small bag of bread in her arms, but in the face of the siege of hundreds of starving people, she still weakly let go of both hands. Hundreds of people crowded in the narrow corridor, fighting for the small bag of bread. In the chaos, the mother was unfortunately pushed out of the window and fell into the surging water. Amid the shrill and mournful cries of the little girl, the mother gradually sank into the water. In an instant, a life was gone, and the robbers didn't even spare a glance for it. I held my trembling hands. I absolutely couldn't be discovered. I ran to the kitchen and picked up 2 kitchen knives. Even at the last moment, I had to fight for a way to survive. Just as I picked up the kitchen knives and rushed out of the kitchen, I suddenly stopped in my tracks. Then, I slowly retreated to the kitchen and stared at the refrigerator covered with maggots. My chance of survival had appeared. There were 2 steaks in the refrigerator that I had forgotten. After the power was cut off, the ice cubes in the refrigerator melted quickly, and all kinds of microorganisms multiplied. Until today, the steaks had rotted and stunk, and were covered with maggots. As soon as I opened the refrigerator, a strong stench hit me in the face. I stuffed my nose with a tissue and carefully took out the steaks with a garbage bag. I placed the rotten and stinking steaks close to the crack of the door, and it was best to let the maggots crawl out through the crack of the door. Then, I picked up a fan and fanned the steaks. Soon, the foul smell filled the whole room. The massive footsteps were getting closer and closer. I kept fanning without stopping. Even though my hands started to feel weak and powerless, I still fanned mechanically, just as I was about to run out of strength. They arrived. The footsteps stopped abruptly when they were close to the door. "No need to search this house. The corpse is already stinking." The tone was contemptuous and indifferent, but for me at this moment, it was like the sound of nature. My legs were too weak to stand, and I leaned against the wall and walked to the sofa in the living room to sit down. Just as I recovered, I heard a familiar sound coming from the opposite building again, through the one-way glass. I saw a large group of people surrounding room 2104. I turned on the tablet and brought up the surveillance. The first thing I saw was a bloody scene. In the picture, the door of the house had been violently smashed open, and the crowd swarmed into the house. Conrad, my father-in-law, and my mother-in-law stood at the door holding kitchen knives, slashing randomly at the people who wanted to come in. Blood splattered all over the walls, although there were a large number of people at the door. They had been hungry for a long time. Moreover, no one was willing to be the first to take the lead and work for others' benefits. So, after the first person was cut and injured, the others hesitated and didn't dare to step forward. The situation fell into a stalemate. Suddenly, someone pushed the person who had just been cut and injured out and used him as a human shield. The others hid behind him and pushed their way in. The first person let out screams of pain when he was cut and soon fell silent, but at the same time, the people outside the door also successfully broke into the living room, taking advantage of their numerical superiority. Conrad, his father, and his mother were soon pushed to the ground, like rats passing through. Everyone started to search for the supplies in the house in a chaotic manner. For a small piece of chocolate, everyone fought each other, and blood flowed. When the mother-in-law saw the dry food hidden in the mattress being found, she roared and rushed forward to stop them. She didn't know who kicked her, and her lower back hit the tea table directly. She couldn't stand up anymore. The father-in-law slumped on the ground, holding a knife and threatening, "Stop, all of you stop, you bunch of bandits, robbers." However, no one listened to him, and even the kitchen knife in his hand was snatched away. Seeing that everyone was about to leave after dividing up the food in the house, Conrad quickly pulled out the fruit knife on the tea table and stabbed it straight at the last person, shouting, "I'll fight you, I'll fight you." After being stabbed, the man knelt down on the ground in pain. His companions saw this and kicked Conrad to the ground several times. They snatched the fruit knife from his hand and stabbed his stomach wildly dozens of times. The dark red blood spurted out from the wound instantly, like a small fountain, spurting higher and higher each time. The intestines mixed with blood gushed out, and like a deflated doll, his stomach gradually collapsed. "Damn it, we were going to let you off originally. You really don't know what's good for you." This time, no one stopped them anymore. Everyone was still busy going to the next house. The father-in-law leaned against the wall and walked up to his son. His old hands trembled as he wanted to cover his son's wound, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. "Dad, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Please save me, save me," Conrad roared excitedly, and the blood gushed out violently with his movements. The father-in-law quickly ran back into the house, found a few strips of cloth, and firmly wrapped them around his son's stomach. "Conrad, in this new life, you haven't lived a good life either." Hearing my voice, the three people in the house were all shocked. "Fiona, you're not dead. Where are you now?" The father-in-law reacted first and stood up in a hurry, looking for the source of the voice. "You don't have to worry about where I am, you just need to know that I'm doing well now. Come to think of it, I should thank you, Conrad. If it weren't for you telling me that the end of the world was coming, I'm afraid I wouldn't be much better off now." Conrad propped himself up, his face full of confusion. I told you. When did I tell you? Conrad, you probably never dreamed that on the day you were reborn, I suddenly heard your inner thoughts. On that day, I knew everything. I knew that the heavy rain would start at 7 o'clock, not 10. I knew that you wanted to take this opportunity to kill me and embezzle my house and money alone. Conrad, in this new life, if it weren't for your greed and viciousness, you wouldn't have ended up like this. Conrad, who had learned all the truth, hugged his head in disbelief and mumbled, "It's impossible," but then, his eyes were filled with hope again. "Sorry, wife, I was wrong. Please forgive me. I promise I'll live a good life with you in the future. I beg you to save me, save me. I'll be your servant when I'm better." I chuckled and told the cruel truth. "Conrad, you won't get better. Can't you see? There's a big hole in your stomach, and all your intestines are leaking out. You're not going to make it." 10. With my words, Conrad looked down at his stomach. During his struggle, the blood-soaked cloth strips loosened slightly, the white intestines rushed out one after another, and the blood gushed out in waves. "I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it." Conrad was so frightened that he tried to stuff his intestines back into his stomach. However, the next second, Conrad fell straight to the ground. He had no breath left. "My son." The father-in-law quickly ran to Conrad again. After confirming that his son was really dead, his eyes turned scarlet, and he gritted his teeth and cursed me. "Fiona, you will die a bad death. I will live. I want to live and tell everyone about your evil deeds." I sneered. He didn't dare to kill the real executioner in front of him and regarded me as the enemy who killed his son. It was just a comfort for him. I closed the tablet and no longer paid attention to their subsequent situation, because I was confident that they could never survive in the apocalypse, in hunger and pain. The second month finally passed. On the 61st day, unprecedentedly, a ray of sunlight appeared in the sky. Threads of sunlight shone on the surging water surface through the thick clouds. This was a good omen. With sunlight, there was hope. I moved the potted plants to the window to welcome the first ray of sunlight in their lives. After moving all of them, I also stood in front of the window. Feeling this rare sunlight, suddenly, two familiar figures appeared on the opposite floor. It was the father-in-law and the mother-in-law. They were holding the inflatable boat I had bought before. I understood in my heart that all their supplies had been snatched away. Staying here would only lead to starvation. They wanted to take the inflatable boat to their younger son's place, but they didn't know that, apart from food supplies, an inflatable boat was a luxury at this time. I looked at the people behind them with green eyes and shook my head regretfully. As I expected, Just as the father-in-law helped the injured mother-in-law onto the boat and was about to take his first step, the hungry wolves behind them immediately pounced forward. They directly pushed the father-in-law into the water, then boarded the inflatable boat and kicked the mother-in-law, who was trying to rescue the father-in-law, down. The two of them only had time to flounder twice in the surging water. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared without a trace. The glass started to fog up again, but this time, it was different. This time, the temperature was starting to rise. The golden sunlight not only brought brightness but also a warm power. The thick clouds gradually dispersed, revealing large patches of sunlight. The world became bright again. The sunlight would shine on every dark corner and wake up the murky soul. Those who were fighting, those who were gnawing on the remaining limbs, and those who were killing each other were all at a loss under the warm sunlight. Just then, a rumbling sound came from above. It was a rescue plane. On the 61st day after the heavy rain hit, 2 months later, the urban system was re-established. All the bloodshed and filth were washed away, and the memories of these 61 days would be forever sealed in the hearts of everyone who successfully survived. A year later, I suddenly had an urge to know the news about Cyrus. I called him out of curiosity. "Sorry, the number you dialed cannot be reached at the moment. Please try again later." And my newlywed husband Rune suddenly suggested, since there were infection cases in his father's neighborhood, he wanted to bring his family to our mansion for the holidays. Little did I know, my in-laws showed their true colors just days after moving in. While I was away, they heartlessly threw out my beloved Samoyed Jojo. What shattered me completely was my drunken brother-in-law barging into my wine cellar. He not only smashed my prized limited edition wines across the floor, but also made unwanted advances toward me. I fought desperately and barely managed to escape. Staring at my disheveled reflection in the mirror, I choked back tears, telling myself just a few more days of endurance. I'll definitely tell my husband everything when he gets back and let him handle it. Little did I know, I'd never live to see that day. The very next day, the zombie outbreak hit the city. My brother-in-law and father-in-law knocked me out when I least expected it, threw me out of the mansion, and kept all the survival supplies I'd prepared for themselves. I fought desperately for survival through the horde of zombies, battered and bleeding as I took refuge in an abandoned building. Just then, I saw my parents rushing to the scene upon hearing the news, desperate to save me. But where was my husband Rune? He snatched all the supplies my parents had brought, then mercilessly shoved them into the zombie swarm. To this day, I can still vividly remember the desperate look in my parents' eyes and their piercing screams, interwoven with the shrill laughter echoing from the mansion. "That bitch and her parents are finally dead. Haha, now Lyra's group and all these luxury collections belong to us." It turns out their whole family had been scheming to take everything from me since the very first blind date. When I opened my eyes again, returning to the day my husband proposed bringing his family to live with us, my heart had already turned to ice. Sipping my tea with practiced grace, I murmured, "Of course, darling, make whatever arrangements you see fit. This time, I'll be taking my parents straight to the safe house I prepared long ago." And watch as my husband's entire family gets devoured by the zombie horde. Urgent alert, multiple cases of unidentified viral infection detected in the city. Citizens are advised to minimize outdoor activities and take protective measures. I stared at the phone screen, a chill running down my spine. I immediately activated the villa's smart home system, meticulously inspecting security measures in every room. The painful lessons from my past life made me realize I must leave nothing to chance before this catastrophe strikes. I was intently reviewing the surveillance footage when footsteps approached from behind. "Lyra, what are you doing hiding in the monitoring room during New Year's?" Rune leaned against the doorframe, studying me with a thoughtful gaze. I quickly switched screens, pretending to check the company's remote surveillance. He strode over to me, casually glancing at the screen. "You're such a workaholic, can't even take a break during the holidays." His tone was playful, but a flicker of displeasure flashed in his eyes. I instinctively shifted away, dodging his outstretched hand. Rune's eyes darkened momentarily before regaining their usual gentle warmth. He cleared his throat with deliberate concern in his voice. "Lyra, have you seen the news? There have been numerous cases reported in Jinshan. My parents are elderly with weakened immune systems." He paused, then continued in a sincere tone, "My dad called yesterday saying people in their area had already gotten infected. They're too scared to go out at night. Maybe we should." I felt a chill watching his feigned look of concern. In my past life, this man used the same sweet talk to manipulate my sympathy. Back then, I naively believed I'd met a devoted gentleman and agreed without hesitation, but the moment his family moved in, their true colors showed. They not only commandeered the entire penthouse suite but ran wild through my home without restraint. 1. What's even more despicable is that they actually threw my beloved Jojo out of the house, and even allowed that brother-in-law of mine to make improper advances toward me. Just recalling those nightmarish days makes my heart tremble. In this lifetime, I'll never repeat those same mistakes. A full day had already passed by the time I realized Jojo was missing. The streets were crawling with zombies. Jojo must have been torn to pieces by now, but I couldn't accept it. Desperately wanting to go search for Jojo, then my sneering brother-in-law blocked my path and scoffed, "It's just a dead mutt, quit making such a fuss over some discarded trash." His lecherous gaze roamed over me as he reached up to touch my face. "Lyra, I've had my eye on you for a while. Why don't we, while nobody's around?" I recoiled in horror, but he seized my wrist with a vice-like grip. I looked pleadingly at my father-in-law, praying he'd put an end to this madness. That sinister face, identical to my brother-in-law's, wore the same revolting expression. It suddenly dawned on me, they'd been putting on an act all along. Their pretense of respect toward me and affection for Jojo before the marriage was all a facade. Now that I'm married into Rune's family, they think I'm trapped with no way out, so the mask can finally come off. My whole body trembled as tears streamed down my face. I wanted to call the police immediately and bring these monsters to justice. This is my home, damn it. Just then, rapid footsteps echoed through the hallway. Rune burst into the room, his face darkening the instant he saw his brother gripping my wrist. He strode forward and shoved his brother aside. Seeing Rune's furious expression, a glimmer of hope rose in my heart, but his next words shattered that hope instantly. "Lyra, I know what they did was wrong, but it's the New Year season. What will people think of us if you kick them out now? Just bear with it for a few more days. I'll make sure they leave after the holidays and never bother you again. I'm begging you, for the sake of our marriage." I swallowed my disgust and rage, repeating to myself that I only needed to endure this a little longer, just a few more days, and I'll be rid of these disgusting people for good. But I never imagined this ending would come so brutally. The zombie virus outbreak plunged the entire city into panic. Faced with mortal danger, human nature twisted completely. The Rune family showed their true colors. My father-in-law threw Jojo, whom I'd raised for 3 years, out of the house. They caught me off guard, knocked me unconscious, and locked me in the basement storage room, giving me only scraps to survive each day. When supplies were nearly exhausted, they shoved my barely alive body out the door, forcing me to scavenge for provisions. The moment I weakly stepped through the neighborhood gates, a horde of ravenous zombies lunged at me. I didn't even have the strength to struggle as they tore me apart, but my parents knew nothing of this. After hearing rumors about me, they risked their lives to come searching with supplies. They'd never imagined that mutilated corpse devoured by zombies was their long-lost daughter. A glint of greed flashed in Rune's eyes when he saw my parents. They effortlessly seized all our supplies, then mercilessly shoved my elderly parents toward the zombie horde. "Listen up, old fools, your daughter's been dead for ages. We fed her to the zombies ourselves. Hurts, doesn't it? Ha, what can your pity possibly do to us? Ha ha ha." My spirit hovered midair, helplessly watching my beloved parents being torn apart by zombies in utter despair and agony. I desperately wanted to rush forward, to embrace them and shield them from those horrifying creatures, yet I could do nothing. Meanwhile, in the mansion, Rune's family was raising their glasses in celebration. Perfect. That whole wretched family is finally wiped out. No, this mansion and Lyra's group all belong to us, the Rune family. My soul trembles with seething rage, as waves of hatred consume my consciousness. I swear to make these beasts pay. They'll wish they were dead. At this very moment of despair, I opened my eyes. I was reborn. I glared coldly at Rune, my fingers twitching involuntarily as if to strangle him. Too. The tragedies of my past life kept flashing through my mind, those bloody scenes, the desperate look in my parents' dying eyes. They all screamed for vengeance, but no, simple revenge would be too merciful for them. I'll make them wish they were dead. They'll taste betrayal and torment, then rot in hell's endless agony. If they're so eager for a reunion, I'll grant their wish, an eternal family gathering in the pits of hell. This time, I'll make them pay in blood. I gave Rune a sweet smile. Of course, let father-in-law come stay with us. Oh, and have your younger brother join us too. It'd be so lonely spending New Year's alone. I haven't seen him in so long. I've actually missed him. A flicker of delight flashed in Rune's eyes before his large hand wrapped around my waist. "Sweetheart, you're becoming more and more considerate." He leaned down and whispered suggestively in my ear, "Don't worry, as long as you behave, I'll treat you right. I'll go pick them up now. Wait for me at home." With murderous rage boiling beneath the surface, I forced a gentle smile to my lips. How could that be? Dearest husband, I'd be delighted to watch your entire family walk to their doom. This time, I'll make sure you beg for death while being denied even that mercy. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, watching Rune's car disappear from view. Every detail of my revenge plan played out in my mind, sending a thrill of satisfaction through me. I quickly grabbed my phone to call my mother. "The zombie virus outbreak begins tomorrow. I must act fast." In this lifetime, I won't let tragedy repeat itself. I'll destroy these demons with my own hands and make them pay for their crimes. Just as I was about to dial, my phone suddenly vibrated. Mom's caller ID flashed on the screen. Lyra. Mom's voice cracked with tears as she cried out, "Mom had a nightmare about you being attacked by those monsters. Don't be scared." Mom. I gripped my phone tightly. "I know what's coming tomorrow. I'm coming back to you right now." After a few seconds of silence, Dad's hoarse voice came through. "So you've seen it too." Wiping tears from the corners of my eyes, I said, "This time, our family will never be separated again." Then nodding to my parents on the phone, I firmly replied, "Yes, I've been reborn too." Those words sent the whole family into emotional turmoil. With sobs rising and falling around the room, I took a deep breath and forced myself to calm down. "Mom, Dad, I've made thorough preparations at the high-rise in the suburbs. It's fully stocked with supplies and has a comprehensive defense system. The zombie virus is about to break out on a massive scale. We must evacuate immediately. I know full well, once the zombie virus breaks out, the entire city will descend into chaos," my mom said with relief. "Perfect. Your father and I have moved all the supplies in these past few days. Even the underground vault's been emptied. Your dad was worried we wouldn't make it in time. Now everything's settled." Hearing my mother say that, a huge weight lifted off my chest. "I'll head back right away and pick up some essentials on the way." "Mom, Dad, just wait for me in the building." Just as I was about to hang up, my father's steady voice came through. "I've got people waiting downstairs for you. Head down when you're ready." "Should I come pick you up myself?" The shelter I chose is in the suburbs, strategically located on defensible high ground. After discussion, my father decided to personally lead the team to retrieve me. Meanwhile, transporting the last batch of crucial survival supplies in hand, hanging up the phone, I immediately began organizing my gear, along with personal essentials. I also packed medical supplies and survival provisions, though the shelter was well stocked. I decided to leave these supplies behind, thinking of Uncle Cassius. In that lifetime, he faced hordes of zombies alone to cover my retreat. He carved a bloody path through the undead swarm so I could escape. Now that I've been given another chance, I swear to repay his kindness. I left supplies by his guard post and solemnly instructed, "Uncle Cassius, there might be an infectious disease outbreak soon. Please be careful. Please take these supplies, and remember to stock up on food and medicine." Uncle Cassius gave a warm, honest smile and gently patted my shoulder with his calloused hands. "You're absolutely right, miss. I've had a bad feeling about this situation for a while now. See, I've got all the supplies stocked up here." I breathed a sigh of relief seeing Uncle Cassius' guard post crammed with provisions. No wonder he held out so long against the zombie horde in our past life. This time around, he'll definitely make it through safely. I made a silent vow to bring him to the shelter when the time was right. After one final equipment check, I scooped up Jojo in my arms. Just as I was about to leave, rapid footsteps echoed from the distance. At that moment, the door was violently kicked open from outside. My 6-foot-tall brother-in-law charged at me like a raging bull, knocking me off my feet before I could react. Jojo immediately arched his back with a threatening growl. Close behind came my sharp-tongued mother-in-law. Her square face dripping with disdain, she crossed her arms and raked me with a scalpel-sharp glare, letting out a contemptuous snort. "Vaughn, those muscles aren't just for show. How'd you even knock over your sister-in-law? Lyra, you're way too fragile, can't handle anything. How are you supposed to carry on the Rune family legacy like this?" I ignored them, rising expressionlessly to calm the bristling Jojo. The father-in-law strode into the living room with purposeful steps. His eagle-sharp eyes swept every corner, radiating an undeniable aura of authority. "This is the house you picked for us. This cramped space dares to be called a mansion. You expect us to live here. Do you take us for country bumpkins who can be easily fooled?" The brother-in-law barged into the master bedroom in one swift move, his burly 6-foot frame dominating the entire bed, with hands clasped behind his head. He surveyed the room with an air of arrogance. "This master suite is mine now. Since my brother invited me here, this is my turf, my home." He kicked off his slippers and rolled shamelessly across the leather mattress. The expensive bed creaked under the strain. "The bed's decent enough. It's settled then," he barked at me. "Clean this room up now." He ransacked the room like a starving wolf, sweeping drawer contents onto the floor. Suddenly, his gaze was drawn to an exquisite crystal bottle on the dressing table. It was a limited edition Gucci Flora, 3. He snorted contemptuously. "Just some perfume. Who does she think she's fooling?" I watched coldly, because this perfume had been meant for him all along. Last night, I spiked it with something special, just waiting for him to fall into the trap. Seeing how eager he was only made me anticipate it more. A faint smile curled my lips as I watched him douse himself with the perfume. This specially formulated perfume packs a far more potent punch than regular fragrances. This was the chaotic scene that greeted Rune when he returned from parking. His rowdy relatives were running wild in the new house. The younger brother-in-law was yelling at Jojo while spritzing cologne. They even threatened to cage him, making Jojo bare his teeth in fear. Rune looked at me with an apologetic expression, his eyes brimming with helplessness and guilt. He parted his lips slightly, as if struggling to find the right words. Just then, the patriarch's commanding roar reverberated through the entire room. What are you standing around for? Tell the servants to prepare dinner immediately. He slammed his fist on the dining table, making the entire surface tremble. Remember, only the finest ingredients will do. Our family's reputation is at stake. The younger brother-in-law rose to his feet, his hulking frame casting a long shadow under the lights. Exactly. Get me the most expensive Wagyu beef and uncork an 82 Lafite. Let these outsiders witness our extravagance. Father-in-law turned over on the new bed, instantly leaving 2 greasy stains on the sheets. The whole family sized me up with scrutinizing eyes, as if they wanted to devour me alive. Last time they visited, they started giving me a hard time from day one. Considering how rarely we reunite and it being the new year, I figured preparing some nice dishes wasn't unreasonable. I toiled alone in the kitchen for hours, preparing a lavish feast that covered the entire table, yet these people started nitpicking without even touching their chopsticks, complaining this dish was too salty, that one wasn't spicy enough, as if my cooking was utterly unpalatable. Seeing my silence, Rune came over and took my hand, wearing that trademark gentle expression as he said, "Honey, since your parents rarely visit, why not show off your cooking skills for them again? Do it for me." "Okay," I sneered inwardly. That ungrateful bastard deserves to know how abandonment feels. Feigning hesitation, I took his hand. "I'd actually love to cook more signature dishes for your parents, but the hospital just called. They said my father had a sudden heart attack and was hospitalized. His condition isn't good. I need to go take care of him immediately." Only then did Rune notice my already packed suitcase, his face darkening instantly. "You're leaving right now? That's impossible. After all the trouble your parents took to visit, how could you just walk away as their daughter-in-law?" I stared coldly at this hypocritical man. My father was fighting for his life, yet all he cared about was currying favor with his parents. How ridiculous. My mother-in-law slammed the table and yelled at me. How outrageous. As a daughter-in-law, taking care of us is your sacred duty. You'd abandon us just for a phone call. This is unacceptable. You're not going anywhere today. Vaughn chimed in. Seriously, sis-in-law, you're being so inconsiderate. With so much housework waiting for you, you just up and decide to leave. I bet you just don't want to take care of us anymore. I scanned the room at these pompous faces, their expressions reminding me of the ugliest human behaviors when doomsday comes. I gave Rune a gentle smile and began spinning my tail with a straight face. "Of course I'd love to stay and take care of you, Grandma, but my father's condition is critical. The doctors say he needs immediate surgery. I wanted to hire a private nurse, but the cost is just too high. Just the surgery alone costs 200 grand, plus 2,000 a day for nursing care. These expenses." Before I could finish, I made a show of reaching for my phone. Seeing my move, my father-in-law flushed crimson instantly. "Enough. What nonsense about 200 grand for surgery, you reckless woman. Are you trying to bleed our family dry? Get your ass back home now, and don't you dare return until your father recovers. There's a mountain of work waiting for you here. Don't think you can weasel out of this." I nodded gently at Rune's family. "I'll head back first then, honey. I'm counting on you to handle things at home. I'll come back as soon as my father's condition stabilizes. Just give me a call if you need any help." Rune's expression finally softened when he heard me say that. In his eyes, "I'll always be that foolish woman he can manipulate at will." Seeing me holding Jojo, he frowned and said, "Why bring the dog? Leave Jojo here." I explained softly, "Dad's allergic to dog hair. Remember, it's rare for us to reunite during New Year. It'd be a shame if Jojo made Dad uncomfortable." That remark perfectly stroked Rune's vanity. He nodded approvingly and even offered to carry my luggage. "Drive safely, and text me when you get to the hospital." I responded with a sweet smile. "Will do. Have fun at home," but inwardly, I sneered, "Let them enjoy their little victory for a few more days. Just wait till doomsday comes. We'll see how long your arrogance lasts." I headed straight for the underground parking lot. The moment I stepped into the elevator, I saw my parents' anxious figures, and tears instantly blurred my vision. Ran, "We've been waiting for you, Mom, Dad. I'm sorry for keeping you waiting." Woof. Jojo barked joyfully, as if celebrating their escape from that dreadful place. In this lifetime, I'll protect those who love me most. We drove out of the neighborhood and headed straight for the warehouse we'd scouted earlier. The base was bustling with activity on the eve of doomsday, which actually made it easier for us to stock up on supplies. My parents' shelter was fully prepared long ago, with its 3-level basement packed with all kinds of food supplies. I even built a greenhouse garden on the shelter's rooftop, growing plenty of vegetables and fruits. Now all that's left is to replenish some essential items. I pulled out my carefully prepared checklist: stock up on canned goods with long shelf lives and instant meals, essential medications, disinfectants, and bandages must be well stocked. Heating equipment and lighting tools are also necessities. Don't forget water purifiers, backup batteries, emergency hand crank generators. Mom specifically reminded me to buy extra feminine products and skincare items, saying even in the apocalypse, one shouldn't compromise on self-care. Dad took charge of procuring mechanical parts and tools to prepare for potential equipment repairs. With these supplies and the shelter's defense systems, we could weather even the toughest days. In my past life, I failed to protect Mom and Dad. This time, I won't let history repeat itself. Dad spent the entire afternoon shuttling back and forth in the truck before finally transporting all the supplies to the shelter. Seeing the neatly organized storage room finally let me breathe a sigh of relief. Oh right, we still need to stock up on dog food and toys for Jojo. I headed to the pet wholesale market again and bought several £100 of dog food along with various common canine medications. Jojo is my last concern in this world. I can't let it suffer through the apocalypse. Seeing me stock up on pet supplies, Dad went to the pharmacy and bought a ton of medical provisions. From cold medicine to anti-inflammatories, painkillers to bandages, we had everything covered. Night had already fallen by the time we returned to the tower. Jojo immediately dashed to the door to greet us, its Snow White fur gleaming brilliantly under the light. Just as Mom was about to set the takeout premium seafood on the table, Rune's call came through. "Lyra, how's your father's condition?" His tone carried a hint of impatience. "Watching Dad play with Jojo," I replied softly. "The recovery isn't going well." Rune paused for a moment before continuing. "Could you prepare some meals for our parents first? That way Auntie can focus on taking care of Uncle. Come back quickly to celebrate New Year with us." My dad said it's embarrassing enough that they finally came to spend New Year with us, but having to cook for themselves, what would people think? You know how Vaughn is, he can't do anything right, I asked mockingly. "So how did you guys solve today's meal situation?" Rune immediately flew into a rage. "We had to order takeout. These greedy merchants jacked up prices like crazy during the holidays. A single meal costs thousands, and that clueless Vaughn insisted on ordering the most expensive dishes. My account balance even showed insufficient funds. Honey, please come home soon. We really can't keep this up much longer." Watching the growing horde of infected wandering the streets outside, I shook my head with a bitter chuckle. These people really think I'm their free servant. Too bad they're in for disappointment. The city's falling apart. The transport system's about to collapse. I'm never going back, I said calmly. "All right, I'll get the ingredients ready and be back tomorrow. Hang in there, darling." I hung up the phone and gazed at the pitch-black night sky outside the window. That term of endearment made me sick, but I knew it'd be the last time I'd utter such hollow words. When doomsday comes, everyone's true colors will show. At last, I'm free from the sham of a marriage and can be with my beloved parents. After hanging up that nauseating call, our family gathered around the table to enjoy a delicious meal. Mom sighed, saying since the apocalypse is coming, we might as well indulge ourselves for once. After dinner, we immediately began making final preparations for the impending catastrophe. The streets were swarming with more infected by the minute, plunging the entire city into chaos. The building's backup generators had long been prepped and ready. Dad personally inspected all the equipment to ensure we could maintain basic necessities during blackouts. Meanwhile, Mom and I split up to cover more ground. The basement of this building was meticulously renovated by me, with direct access to the ground floor lobby for emergency evacuations. This design was specifically implemented to ensure my parents' safety. Looking back, that decision proved incredibly wise. We never had to worry about being trapped above ground while directing workers to move the last batch of supplies. I discovered crates of fresh fruits piled in the corner, alongside common fruits like apples and pears. There were also prized imported varieties. Noticing me staring at the cherries in awe, Mom explained with a gentle smile, "Your father specially got these for you. He remembers they're your favorite." A wave of warmth washed over me. Nothing compares to the joy of being with family. After we finished organizing supplies and setting up temporary shelters, we made Jojo a cozy nest as midnight approached. The surveillance screens showed hospital admissions surging exponentially. "This means the virus is spreading at an accelerating rate." With a sigh, Dad said, "Lyra, you should get some rest first. As long as our family stays together, we fear nothing. Truly, having family by your side is the greatest comfort." Carrying Jojo back to the penthouse suite, I quickly drifted off to sleep. I expected to toss and turn all night, but ended up sleeping straight through till 9 the next morning. I woke with a start to the sound of screams outside my window. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I saw the city had transformed completely. Hordes of infected roamed the streets, slow-moving yet terrifyingly aggressive. Survivors fled in panic with their belongings, yet some were inevitably overtaken by the infected. Piercing screams echoed non-stop amid relentless gunfire and wailing sirens. Skyscrapers in the distance were engulfed in flames, their smoke blotting out half the sky. Malls and supermarkets lay looted bare. Littered with shattered glass and overturned vehicles, the military barricades had long since failed, plunging the city into complete chaos. I checked my phone only to find the signal was cutting in and out. News reports said the infection was spreading far faster than anticipated, putting the entire nation under a state of emergency. Hospitals were overwhelmed, unable to maintain even basic quarantine protocols. 5. But I knew, this catastrophe was only just beginning. The building was no longer safe to stay in, with the horde of zombies growing larger by the minute downstairs. In just a few hours, the entire city would fall. Unprepared people wouldn't survive even by hiding in their homes. Our whole family immediately relocated to the basement. The nanny whipped up a comforting bowl of wonton soup in the kitchen, the aroma of shrimp and greens momentarily making me forget the horrors outside. But I'd barely finished half when Rune called again. "Hey Lyra. When the hell are you coming back? I've had fucking enough of this. The whole city's gone to shit, can't even get food delivered anymore. That Vaughn kid keeps whining about being hungry, he's driving me crazy. My dad keeps complaining about feeling unwell all over, but who dares go to the hospital in this situation? If you don't come back soon, I'm coming over there myself." I couldn't help but sneer. Seriously, at a time like this, Rune still expects me to go back and fix his problems. What a joke. Right now, my self-important husband still expects me to come home and cook, solving all his problems for him. Savoring the truffle, I chuckled softly. "But honey, with the situation outside, all the elevators are down, I'm stuck in the building. Honey, can you come pick me up by car?" Rune froze for a second before replying in panic. "The streets are crawling with zombies right now, driving out would be way too dangerous." Before Rune could finish speaking, the mother-in-law's furious voice erupted from the phone. "You jinx, how could you make Rune pick you up when it's so dangerous out there? What if something happens to him, you heartless witch?" I chuckled lightly. "Well then, I suppose I'll just have to wait here. Darling, I understand how much your mother dotes on you. My own mom wouldn't let me take such risks either. Just stay put at home. I'll return when I've secured a safe route." Rune snorted coldly. "Fine, have it your way." With that, he hung up. My crimson lips curled as a mocking glint flashed through my eyes. "This time around, I'm curious to see who'll become the zombie's prey first. Keep waiting in your delusions, darling husband." After breakfast, I lounged comfortably on the leather sofa, munching on Mom's carefully selected imported cherries while powering up my tablet. The screen displayed none other than a live feed from the Rune household surveillance cameras. This security system was originally installed to protect my beloved pet Jojo. Who would have thought it had become my ultimate leverage over this father-son duo? Only I know the password. They'll never suspect their every move is under my watch. I couldn't make it back, so my father-in-law had to prepare lunch himself, but after searching the entire kitchen, he couldn't find any decent ingredients. All that remained were 2 packs of instant noodles and some wilted vegetables I'd intentionally left behind, nothing else. That's when they realized something was wrong. Rune immediately called in a huff, demanding, "Why is there absolutely nothing to eat in the kitchen? Didn't you say you were going to buy New Year's groceries?" I took a delicate sip of red wine while gazing at the gloomy sky outside the window. "I did buy the New Year's provisions, and they're all premium ingredients, but now they're all quietly stored away in my safe house." I feigned apology, saying, "Oh dear, that company meeting ran so late that day. I'd planned to go shopping with you the next morning." Then my in-laws showed up unexpectedly, and to make matters worse, my father was hospitalized. Everything just got derailed. "How about, you pop down to the supermarket now to grab some?" Rune screeched like an enraged rooster, his voice shrill with fury. "The streets are crawling with zombies. How dare you expect me to go out? What if I get infected? Are you deliberately trying to get me killed?" As I listened to his hysterical outburst, a cold glint flashed in my eyes. "Oh, so now you realize how dangerous it is outside. When you shoved me out the door in our past life, you never imagined I'd die. This time around, you'll get to experience what abandonment feels like." Vaughn chimed in from the side. "If anything happens to my brother, you'll never know peace again, Lyra. I'm warning you, get us some food now. I demand the finest caviar and foie gras. Your shelter's stocked with gourmet supplies, isn't it? Hand them all over." Peering through the bulletproof glass of the shelter's top floor, I watched the shambling corpses outside with a sardonic smirk. "My dear brother-in-law, you might not fully grasp the current situation. We do have plenty of premium ingredients here, but they've all been donated to those in need. After all, everyone should lend a helping hand during times like these, don't you think? I deliberately paused, speaking softly. Don't worry, Vaughn. Once it's safe outside, I'll make sure to take care of you all. Vaughn finally settled down after hearing my promise. His gaze at me was filled with that same nauseating, almost obsessive adoration. Rune noticed everything from the sidelines but chose to remain silent. He softened his tone and said, "All right then, honey, hurry up and figure something out. I'll be waiting for you." After the call ended, Rune in the surveillance footage couldn't wait to take off the hazmat suit. He slumped onto the couch with an irritated expression. The old man sighed in relief while boiling instant noodles and cursing under his breath. That good-for-nothing Lyra, all talk and no action. Her shelter must be stocked with all kinds of goodies. She's just too damn stingy to share. When she gets back, I'll make sure she hauls everything over here. Rune sneered in agreement. Right, with her spoiled temper, do you really think she can handle hardship? When she gets back, we'll make sure she hands over all the good stuff. Watching their smug expressions, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Just keep waiting then, keep waiting, and you'll miss your last chance to escape. 6. From now on, all shelters will shut their doors permanently. The virus keeps mutating, causing infection rates to skyrocket exponentially. With more zombies roaming the streets, survivors had to abandon all thoughts of venturing out for supplies. The city fell into an eerie silence, punctuated only by occasional screams and wails that served as grim reminders of the apocalypse's brutality. The horde kept growing, with zombies piling up outside the skyscraper to the height of its second floor. Father suited up in specialized protective gear and headed out with a high-pressure water cannon to clear the zombies. Mother and I armed ourselves too, following close behind him. This had become our daily survival routine. Otherwise, the growing horde of zombies would not only breach the shelter's defenses, but overrun even this top-tier refuge. My parents told me, in the previous life, every shelter had its own specialized cleanup crew. We often picked up distress signals from other shelters, but in times like these, everyone's just fighting for their own survival. Wealth and power do have their privileges. Top-tier shelters not only have ample supplies but are also equipped with state-of-the-art defense systems. Despite the chaos outside, we still live in relative comfort. My parents said everyone in the shelter remained safe until the day they came looking for me in our past life. That brings me comfort. At least in this lifetime, I can protect those who matter most, as long as the shelter is well stocked. We won't repeat the mistakes of our past lives. We've made thorough preparations, not only stockpiling ample supplies but also equipping ourselves with state-of-the-art weaponry. This time, I won't let anyone threaten our safety. The next day, as infection rates skyrocketed, the city descended into deeper panic. Some say the streets are now swarming with more zombies than anyone could count. Then some reckless vlogger actually went out to film it. He'd barely stepped out of the building when a horde of zombies swarmed and devoured him. He didn't even get a chance to run. Just like me in my past life, I can still vividly remember that day. I pleaded desperately outside the door while Rune watched coldly. With countless betrayals and wounds, they've severed my last shred of mercy toward them with their own hands. This lifetime, I'll make them relive that despair, just as I was savoring Mom's meticulously prepared truffle pasta. Rune's video call abruptly flashed on the screen. The rich aroma of truffles lifted my spirits as I delicately dabbed the corner of my mouth. Rune's gaze burned with intensity through the screen. "What's that delicious treat you're eating, babe? Looks mouth-watering." I pursed my lips lightly. Mom specially made my favorite truffle pasta. A flicker of hunger flashed in Rune's eyes as he spoke in that deep, velvety voice. "Lyra, I haven't stopped thinking about you." His voice carried a possessive edge. "You know, every time I picture you in that shelter, I just want to drop everything and rush to your side." I sneered inwardly while putting on an affected blush. "Darling, not now, your brother's watching us. Don't worry, our shelters here are coordinating to deliver supplies to all areas within 5 days. I've already filled in our home address on the form. I even made a special note to include the Wagyu beef you love and the Australian lobster your brother-in-law adores." I specifically mentioned Vaughn to make sure Rune would see, made him believe Vaughn had successfully cuckolded him, but to my surprise, Rune seemed to ignore it completely. As if he missed my hint, Rune slammed his fist on the table and exclaimed, "Perfect." His eyes gleamed with fervor. "Lyra, you're my lucky charm." Vaughn rubbed his hands excitedly beside me. "Sis, you're the best. I'm starving to death." Seeing their eagerness, I deliberately flashed an innocent smile. "You'd better wait patiently for me then." During this time, I muted all communication devices. Watching the missed call notifications flash across my phone screen, I took a refined sip of red wine. "What you did to me in our past lives, I'll return tenfold in this one. I'll make you oscillate between hope and despair until your minds shatter." With my parents, we spend leisurely days, sometimes savoring gourmet meals, other times playing bridge. Life couldn't be more delightful. On the first day, The whole family pitched in to make pizzas together. The rich cheese slowly melted in the oven, its golden surface glistening temptingly. The second day featured a shared French gourmet feast, pan-seared foie gras paired with red wine, pure indulgence in every bite. Day 3, savoring exquisite Japanese cuisine. Day 4, relishing Vaughn's favorite Wagyu beef while sipping champagne. Day 5, Mom's lovingly prepared lobster pasta with truffle mushroom soup. Every dish was Rune's favorite in their past life, yet now they can only watch us feast through the surveillance feed. Isn't this torment far more entertaining than simply killing them? When I turned my phone back on, a flood of missed calls and messages came pouring in. I scrolled through Rune's messages one by one, from sweet nothings to outright threats. Every word out of their mouth made me sick. Their concern was masking nothing but greed and schemes. I took a sip of red wine and pulled up the surveillance feed. The Rune family huddled in the shelter's corner, trembling like stray dogs in the rain. I gently traced the rim of the wineglass, a graceful curve playing at the corner of my lips. In my past life, you cast me into hell with your own hands. This time, I'll make you taste despair. Watching their gaunt figures grow thinner by the day filled me with savage satisfaction. Now this is true vengeance. 13. The eunuch nearby kept cursing incessantly. 7. Rune suddenly stood up, his eyes bloodshot. Shut up. He flipped the table in front of him violently. You know what? If you hadn't been giving Lyra such a hard time, we'd all be safe by now. He turned to the old man with a sneer. Since you're so good at throwing your weight around, why don't you go scavenge some food for us? The old man's face darkened as he clenched his fists. You ungrateful wretch. I'm your father, Rune advanced with a vicious grin. Oh yes, you certainly are my dear old dad, aren't you? How did you treat Lyra? Old man, you've been nitpicking and making trouble all day long. Now we'll all starve to death here. People always reveal their ugliest side when death comes knocking. I took a sip of red wine while watching the farce unfold on the surveillance screen. I saw through the Rune family's true colors in my past life. They're nothing but selfish hypocrites to the core. To save their own skins, they wouldn't hesitate to throw their closest kin to the wolves. The old woman paced anxiously around the room, her eyes flickering with fear and suspicion. She dared not step outside, terrified of becoming the next sacrificial lamb. The woman who made my past life a living hell finally got a taste of betrayal from her own kin. Time flew by, another day had passed in the blink of an eye. I savored Mom's freshly made truffle risotto with elegant poise, never taking my eyes off the surveillance feed. By now, Rune hadn't had a drop of water in 2 days. I set down the silverware with deliberate grace, watching with morbid fascination as the man's composure unraveled. Just as he was about to collapse, he staggered drunkenly into the master bedroom. The moment the door swung open, Rune froze. Vaughn was kneeling before my wardrobe, his face buried in my intimate garments, emitting intoxicated moans. Years of carefully maintained brotherly affection shattered in an instant as a ruthless glint flashed in Rune's eyes. Silently grabbing the baseball bat by the door, he swung it viciously at Vaughn's skull. Vaughn crumpled to the ground but remained semi-conscious, gasping for breath. He weakly struggled to rise while murmuring, "Lyra, Lyra." Those words sent Rune into a blind rage. He drew the dagger from his belt and plunged it into Vaughn's heart without hesitation. Blood gushed forth, staining the carpet crimson. Rune watched with an impassive face as his brother's life slowly drained away, until the breathing ceased completely. The mother's unease grew stronger after discovering her youngest son had gone missing. She paced back and forth in the room before finally deciding to go search for him. Stepping out the door, she immediately spotted bloodstains speckling the carpet. Her heart nearly stopped as she shakily followed the trail of blood. Coming to a halt at the kitchen doorway, faint chewing sounds came from the kitchen as the old woman held her breath and cautiously pushed the door open. She initially thought Rune had found some food and was about to lose her temper, but the sight before her made her scream instantly. Rune crouched in the corner, with Vaughn's mutilated corpse lying before him. He raised his head, blood still trickling from the corner of his mouth, revealing a sinister grin. "Mom, perfect timing. Little brother and I are having a reunion here. Why don't you join us?" The old woman's legs gave way as she collapsed to the ground. She stared at her eldest son, the once refined corporate elite, now savaging his own brother's flesh like a wild beast. At this moment, she finally understood how fragile human nature becomes in the face of utter despair. 14. She couldn't believe Rune, her own flesh and blood, would treat his youngest son this way. Her scream alerted her father-in-law upstairs, and the old man came stumbling down the stairs. The moment he saw the scene before him, blind rage took over. He stormed into the kitchen, grabbed a cleaver, and swung at Rune. Steel flashed, blood sprayed, both bodies crumpled to the ground. The surveillance footage froze on Rune's eyes, brimming with utter despair. In silence, I shut down the monitoring system and erased all traces of the recording. The scenes were too gruesome to bear. I couldn't look anymore, just wanted to bury it all forever. I stopped concerning myself with their affairs. They've gotten what they deserved after all. Simply stored all data related to Rune's family on a hard drive and locked it away in the safe. Late at night, I nestled close to my mother, listening to her steady breathing. This warmth and sense of security fills me with immense happiness. Watching my parents sleep peacefully, I'm grateful we avoided that catastrophe in this lifetime. Afterwards, our family lived quietly in the shelter, just like before. We'd sometimes cook together as a family or play bridge with the servants to pass the time. Occasionally, I'd take a stroll in the rooftop garden to get some fresh air. As time passed, the outside world gradually came back to life. A year later, scientists finally developed a vaccine for the zombie virus. Communities began rebuilding their homes as social order steadily returned to normal. The police called just as we were about to leave the shelter. They found Rune and her father-in-law's bodies at the family villa. Police investigation revealed Vaughn had been killed, while the mother-in-law went missing during the chaos and remains unaccounted for. The officers kept telling me to accept their condolences, but I felt no grief whatsoever. These wicked people finally got what they deserved, and I couldn't be more delighted. Later, I donated the shelter to a charity, turning it into temporary housing for migrant workers. I moved into my parents' villa to spend every day by their side. Watching my parents age has made me cherish this hard-won family bond even more. In this lifetime, I've finally understood what matters most. In this world, a parent's love is the only eternal truth. The end.